Jung Shu Yi's life was already a dumpster fire. Her love story began with a betrayal so basic it should have come with a participation trophy. Her boyfriend left her for a normie who somehow upgraded to Richie Rich, complete with cars and zero taste. At work, a wannabe vamp lurked, scheming to steal her job and kick her out like she was expired cheese. So naturally, her master plan for revenge was to drag the male lead. Imagine a military grandpa trapped in a handsome young body, all rigid discipline and absolutely zero chill, into becoming her sugar daddy. Because if you are going down, you might as well go down fabulously. At the weekly finance magazine, Jung Shu Yi's phone buzzed with a call. The caller confirmed if it was reporter Jung Shu Yi from Weekly Finance magazine for shareholders. The man introduced himself as Assistant Shen Sheng of Mingyu Bank, calling from the CEO's office. He explained that the interview her company arranged 1 month ago with Mr. Shi might be delayed for a week due to Mr. Shi's personal matters. Jung Shu Yi let out an unintentional cry upon hearing this news. She questioned in frustration that the interview script was only effective at present to keep up with the latest trend. She reasoned that if it was delayed, all her efforts would be wasted. Apologetically, she responded that she truly could not wait another week. She asked if he could check whether Mr. Shi Yan could spare some time that night, suggesting that even a phone call would suffice. She stressed that 2 hours would be enough. The assistant explained that if it was that night, Mr. Shi Yan had to attend an important banquet. Though he might arrange some time for her, he was uncertain if Mr. Shi Yan could manage it, warning that she might only waste her effort. Still, Jung Shu Yi pleaded with him to at least ask, insisting that she could make it work. After ending the call, Jung Shu Yi reflected on the situation concerning Shi Yan. At the age of 27, he had taken over Mingyu Bank, which belonged to his family's corporation, and had been on the verge of bankruptcy. Against pessimistic views and public doubts, he managed to turn the situation around with his own efforts. Through this, he established himself as an influential figure in the entire financial industry. The name Shi Yan carried so much weight that whichever reporter interviewed him would automatically gain remarkable publicity. A colleague turned to Jung Shu Yi and reminded her that she was supposed to spend the evening with her boyfriend for his birthday. Jung Shu Yi explained that there was nothing she could do about it. She reasoned that if she could not stand up to her boyfriend, then what could she possibly do to Shi Yan? Not long after, her boyfriend called, asking when she would finish work so that he could pick her up. Jung Shu Yi told him with regret that a very important interview had come up at the last moment and that she did not think she could come that night. Her boyfriend reassured her, saying that it was fine since work mattered. He said he would find a friend to spend time with and manage for the night. Jung Shu Yi apologized again, claiming that she was not feeling well and would not be able to watch movies with him afterward. Her boyfriend simply replied that it was just a birthday and they could celebrate together in future years. He mentioned that he would return to work and then come pick her up later, ending the call quickly. Jung Shu Yi's colleague remarked that life truly seemed hard. She wondered aloud if Jung Shu Yi's boyfriend was too understanding. She said that if her boyfriend had been stood up during the early stages of her own relationship, he would have definitely been angry. Jung Shu Yi, however, thought differently. She felt that Jing Zhou was indeed very understanding, perhaps too much so. He had not even asked why she felt unwell and had hurriedly ended the call. She tried to cheer herself up, convincing herself that she was being overly sensitive because of her period. She told herself not to think too much about it since she had chosen her career. Now, she only had to ensure that the interview went smoothly. She prayed silently for it to work out. At the office, while waiting for more than 2 hours, suddenly, Qin Xiaoming, brother-in-law of the Shi Yan, entered, calling out for reporter Jung Shu Yi. At the same moment, her phone rang. Assistant Shen apologized over the call, saying that although the banquet had ended, Mr. Shi Yan had other matters to attend to and would not be able to meet her. Jung Shu Yi thanked him politely before stepping out. Seeing the large gathering, she noticed many familiar faces she had interviewed before. She thought there might still be a chance of meeting Shi Yan here. Just then, someone called out asking if she was reporter Jung Shu Yi and whether she was alone. The man offered to escort her home. Jung Shu Yi declined politely, saying it was only a coincidence meeting him there. However, the man came too close, attempting to touch her. Jung Shu Yi quickly brushed him off, explaining that her boyfriend would arrive soon. At that moment, Qin Xiaoming, in his car, remarked to Shi Yan that the young lady had interviewed him before and that she was quite nice. He mentioned that he had overheard Assistant Shen saying she had waited all night in vain and acknowledged how difficult it must have been for her. He asked Shi Yan to escort her home. Shi Yan gave Jung Shu Yi a brief glance before turning away, leaving shortly afterward. Jung Shu Yi struggled with the thought that not a single photograph of him existed on the entire internet. She wondered if anyone truly knew what Shi Yan looked like. As she stood there, lost in thought, a luxurious car suddenly stopped in front of her. The door opened, and from behind her came a voice calling her name. She turned to see a handsome young man asking if she wanted a ride. When Jung Shu Yi saw Shi Yan, she wondered why second-generation heirs behave so casually nowadays. She declined politely, thanking him with restraint. Shi Yan glanced at her hands, which seemed to tremble slightly, though Jung Shu Yi forced a pleasant smile, mentioning that her boyfriend would come to pick her up. Shi Yan only looked through her briefly before leaving. Later, when Jung Shu Yi finally met Jing Zhou, he apologized for being late. He explained nervously that it was his first time coming to that part of the city, and because he had taken a long route, he had arrived later than expected. Jung Shu Yi questioned him directly about who he had celebrated celebrated his birthday with earlier. At her words, Xingzhou grew visibly uneasy, hesitating to answer further. She pressed on, asking if it had been Xu Feng. Xingzhou admitted it, saying her guesses were always accurate. Jung Shu Yi leaned closer, sniffing the faint fragrance around him, remarking that she never thought such a clueless man would know how to use perfume. With suspicion in her voice, she asked if he had found himself a girlfriend. At her words, Xingzhou suddenly pushed her head aside, telling her firmly to stop, repeating his demand as he said he was driving and asked her to behave. Jung Shu Yi sat back, remarking softly on why he had been so touchy and different lately. When they finally reached home, Jung Shu Yi lay on her bed with a heavy mind. She thought that Xingzhou should have been at his own home by then, yet she felt compelled to call him before falling asleep. She searched around for her phone, certain she had used it after leaving the manor, so it could not have been lost. She reasoned that perhaps she had left it in Xingzhou's car. Opening her laptop to trace it, she was shocked to see its location show up at Jung City General Hospital. The discovery left her confused. It was almost midnight, and there seemed no reason for her phone to end up there. Still, she felt she could not allow anything to go wrong. Driven by unease, she left for the hospital. On arriving, she spotted Xingzhou's car parked nearby. Her heart sank as she questioned silently why he would be at the hospital so late at night. She is about to move toward the entrance, hoping for a reasonable explanation. What she saw inside froze her in place. A girl was leaning against Xingzhou, and the sight struck her like thunder. Fear and disbelief washed over her as she stood motionless, silently praying that Xingzhou would push the girl away. She told herself that if he did, she would give him a chance to explain. She pleaded inwardly, wanting just one act from him that could still preserve her trust, but instead of pulling away, Xingzhou allowed the closeness. Troubled, Jung Shu Yi's mind replayed his earlier excuses, his unusual behavior, and his vague words about spending his birthday with a friend. Her colleague's earlier remark about her boyfriend being too understanding returned to her thoughts, and she realized all the small signs had been pointing in the same direction. She was not paranoid after all. The truth had been there from the beginning. Her chest tightened as she remembered how Xingzhou had once declared he was a determined man. He had told her he had pursued her for 3 years and that he intended to spend the rest of his life making her happy, begging her to believe in him. Yet now, the painful reality unfolded before her eyes. Xingzhou was kissing another woman. Jung Shu Yi's lips curled into a bitter scoff as she thought of it as nothing short of ridiculous. The weight of betrayal pressed down on her as she returned home, where the old photographs with Xingzhou still decorated her space. She sat in silence, staring. At the office the next day, the editor called out for Jung Shu Yi, informing her that Mingyu Bank had contacted them. The interview had been rescheduled for next Thursday at 10 p.m. and a topic needed to be changed. She instructed Jung Shu Yi to prepare and submit a new outline as soon as possible. While speaking, she noticed the gloomy look on Jung Shu Yi's face and the heavy air surrounding her. Shocked and concerned to see a ghost, she asked what had happened. Jung Shu Yi tried to brush it off, saying it was only because she had not been able to meet Mr. Xian, and questioned why the editor seemed so worried. Then, with a heavy tone, she admitted that it was not just that she had broken up with her boyfriend the night before. She recalled how Xingzhou had explained everything to her. He told her that her family background was extraordinary. Her uncle drove a Rolls-Royce with a rare straight number plate, the only one of its kind in Jing City. According to him, her family was both rich and powerful, and he felt he had no choice. He confessed that he had always dreamed of making it big and retiring early instead of working endlessly day and night, only to remain unable to afford a house. Xingzhou admitted that he had once loved her deeply and had truly hoped to be with her forever. Yet now, he believed it would be better if they remained only friends. Jung Shu Yi reacted furiously, grabbing a nearby bucket and shoving it at his face. She shouted at him, asking who in the world would ever want to stay friends with him, declaring it would only happen over her dead body. The editor sighed and commented that in the end, Xingzhou had even managed to steal her most expensive brooch while she had not been paying attention. Jung Shu Yi nodded in bitter agreement. The editor tried to console her, stating that he had never been good enough for her anyway. She reminded Jung Shu Yi that she had always treasured her past, but in reality, she had tried very hard to persuade her to leave the newspaper office because she wanted to see her become the exclusive face of the finest weekly magazine. With her abilities, she could easily find someone worthy of her. Jung Shu Yi then asked what kind of man she should be seeking. With a half smile, she questioned if it should be someone who drove a Rolls-Royce. The editor responded that there was no harm in that. She emphasized that Jung Shu Yi had talent, the willingness to work hard, and a bright future ahead of her, so she deserved nothing less. Still, she warned Jung Shu Yi not to let her personal problems interfere with her work. She reminded her to stay focused and prepare well for the submission meeting at the financial center that evening. Later, at the financial center, Jung Shu Yi arrived with her nose in hand. To her dismay, she realized Xingzhou's company was located right next door. She thought to herself that if it had not been the only cafe in the industrial park, she would never have come here. Unfortunately, fate played its hand, and she stumbled upon Xingzhou and his new girlfriend. The sight made her chest tighten. She cursed silently, remarking to herself that they had broken up only at midnight, yet here they were already strolling hand in hand through the streets as if nothing had happened. The girl tugged on Xingzhou's arm and asked if they should enter the cafe together. Xingzhou hesitated, suggesting that they could come another time, but the girl refused, insisting that she wanted cocoa from that very place. She explained that if she missed even a single day without it, she would feel unwell. Jung Shu Yi, watching closely, realized she had recognized her from the beginning. The sight of her hand clinging to Jing Zhou's made her fists clench. With bitterness rising inside, Jung Shu Yi muttered under her breath that a dog never changed its habits. She then tossed her own coffee aside and remarked sharply that some people seem to enjoy secondhand goods. Her words struck the girl directly, leaving her visibly annoyed. Jung Shu Yi kicked at a nearby pole to vent her anger, then told herself firm with it she was not mad. She reminded herself it was not worth losing composure over a pair of shameless people. Just then, she overheard the girl's voice calling Jing Zhou's attention, telling him to look at her. The girl said she did not mind being cursed at, but questioned how Jung Shu Yi could dare to curse at him. Jing Zhou's voice followed, saying it was fine and that they should simply avoid coming to this place in the future. The girl then added with a sneer that she had learned something new that day, admitting she could not understand how he had managed to endure Jung Shu Yi's crudeness for so many years. Jung Shu Yi turned her face away, pretending not to hear, but Jing Zhou's voice carried again, telling the girl that they should stay far from such people in the future. The further the better. Those words struck Jung Shu Yi like a sharp reminder, pulling back the memory of seeing him kiss another woman and recalling his false assurances at her door. She realized it was the same royal tone, the same voice that had been present at the hospital and then again at her apartment. She thought bitterly that his White Lotus act had been perfectly staged, making it clear why Jing Zhou had been so enchanted. A sense of cold determination spread within her. She told herself that she was right. Some people, unless made to pay a price for their actions, would continue believing they had done nothing wrong and would treat others as fools. Her editor's words came back to her mind, strengthening her resolve. Even if she could not make him pay now, she swore that one day those people would have no choice but to address her respectfully, and by then it would be too late for them. While these thoughts weighed on her mind, a Rolls-Royce suddenly stopped beside her. Curious, she knocked on the tinted window, but there was no immediate response. She wondered aloud if someone was inside. Moments later, the window slid down, revealing a familiar-faced, very same young man she encountered the previous day. Recognition stirred as she recalled their brief exchange. He was the second-generation heir she had turned down. Since things had come to this, Jung Shu Yi quickly explained that her phone battery had died and she could not call for a taxi. She asked politely if she could borrow his phone instead. The man remained silent, offering no response. Jung Shu Yi felt time itself stand still. She thought that since he had taken the initiative to approach her before, perhaps he held at least a little interest. Mustering courage, she asked whether he would be willing to give her a ride. His eyes swept over her briefly before he spoke. He said coldly that he did not give rides to women who already had boyfriends. The words left Jung Shu Yi stunned where she stood as the luxury car sped away into the distance. At home, Jung Shu Yi carried out her work with visible annoyance, thinking about how the man who had tried to hit on her last night turned out to be the mistress's uncle, and how today he had rejected her in return. Remembering his words made her even more irritated, and she resolved that even if her love life failed, her career must not. She reminded herself that the upcoming interview with Mr. Xian was important, and this time she had to succeed, so she prepared herself and headed out to the bank. The receptionist at the bank asked her to step forward and register her guest information. Jung Shu Yi complied and began filling out the form, but as she scanned through it, she stumbled upon a familiar name. She questioned what her name was doing there. It was undoubtedly hers. She recalled how she had never gotten along with Xu Yuling, who had worked in the same company as her. From the very first day she joined, Xu Yuling had targeted her. During the past 2 years, there had been countless occasions when Xu Yuling had stolen her information and resources. She wondered if this was another one of those cases as she took the lift up to the designated floor. As she stepped out, she bumped into someone who immediately recognized her. It was the assistant Shen. Jung Shu Yi greeted him politely, mentioning that she was glad he was present since she had scheduled an exclusive interview at 3:30 that day with the CEO. The assistant appeared surprised and explained that her coworker had already conducted the interview earlier that morning when Mr. Xian had been available. Jung Shu Yi clenched her fist in frustration, suspecting that Xu Yuling had once again stolen an opportunity from her. Trying to maintain her composure, she apologized and admitted that there must have been poor internal communication, which had caused her to come there for nothing. She wanted to deny the situation, but as she glanced at another figure nearby, she froze in place. From the appearance, she began to wonder if that man was the same person from before. The assistant, Shen, addressed him respectfully as Mr. Xian. The realization hit her immediately. He was the financial giant himself. She felt her confidence crumble as Xian glanced at her briefly, making her shiver before he walked past, completely ignoring her presence. Jung Shu Yi questioned in her mind if he had just walked away so easily. Did she now have to do the same, pretending nothing had happened? She felt a rush of anger and cursed it inwardly, determined that she wanted to do the interview and prove herself. At the same time, she also thought about wanting to secure her position in life. Gathering her courage, she called out to Xian, reminding him that the interview had originally been arranged for that morning and that she had been looking forward to it for a long time. She expressed with a smile that the day she had anticipated had finally arrived, and she asked if he could spare some time for her. As Xian noticed Jung Shu Yi's trembling hand and the sweat forming on her skin, she moved closer, assuring him that the interview would only take a short while, and asked if everything was fine with him. Xian turned away, appearing ready to leave, which made Jung Shu Yi think she had failed once again. Yet just before entering the elevator, Xian told her to follow him. Once inside, Jung Shu Yi silently silently thanked the Buddha for showing her mercy, feeling relieved that she would not lose any more opportunities to stress and disappointment. When she noticed the glowing button for the -2 level, she questioned where they were headed. At that moment, Shi Yang's phone rang loudly, and he declined the call without hesitation. Soon after, Assistant Chen's phone rang, and the voice on the other side screamed, urging her uncle to pick up his phone. Jung Shu Yi immediately assumed it was the mistress. Shi Yan instructed Assistant Chen to inform her that if she did not behave properly at home, she should refrain from appearing in front of him in the future. Hearing this, Jung Shu Yi realized the situation was not as troubling as she had feared. Though he seemed fond of his niece, he still maintained authority as a strict uncle who upheld discipline. To her, he appeared to be the perfect person she could use to intimidate the mistress when needed. When they reached the car, Shi Yan explained that the journey would take 2 hours and suggested they continue their conversation there, to which Jung Shu Yi readily agreed. Settling inside, Shi Yan briefly glanced at her beauty before turning his face away, while Jung Shu Yi believed her composure and movements were as professional as his. To her surprise, Shi Yan asked if she was feeling cold. Jung Shu Yi questioned in her mind if such a remark was appropriate coming from him, but admitted it revealed how considerate and observant he could be. She decided it would be wise to take advantage of that sight of him. Smiling softly, she replied that she was not cold. As Jung Shu Yi realized that her usual charm was not working, she regretted not calming herself earlier. She asked Shi Yan if they could begin the recording, but he gave no response. Attempting to maintain her composure, she added that she would record the entire process and, once the final draft was ready, she would make sure to confirm it with him. Still, there was silence from his side. Jung Shu Yi cursed inwardly, wondering if he intended to turn the car into a military camp, before finally stating that she would just begin the interview. She introduced the main topic, explaining that it would focus on the role of the Chinese yuan as a pillar currency among Asian countries, and its overall influence in the eastern region. Shi Yan, recalling that Xu Yuling had asked the same question earlier, recognized it as part of the same script. Jung Shu Yi asked if he had any insights, and Shi Yan looked directly at her, silently sizing her up. His piercing gaze made Jung Shu Yi pout as she thought to herself that if he truly held no ulterior motives toward her, then he owed her an explanation for the expression he wore. Finally, Shi Yan spoke, explaining the importance of enhancing capital strength. He stated that in order to compete more efficiently in the international market, banks needed to maintain robust capital reserves to support the scale and complexity of their external operations. As the interview progressed, Jung Shu Yi found herself engrossed in the rhythm of his responses. Without realizing it, a considerable amount of time had passed. Keeping up with his pace demanded her full concentration, leaving no room for distractions. Yet, as she observed his flawless features, her thoughts betrayed her. She admitted to herself that though his temper seemed severe, his face carried a strikingly handsome expression that was difficult to ignore. When Shi Yan finally asked if the interview was finished, Jung Shu Yi hurriedly confirmed. However, in her fluster, she stumbled over her words and accidentally blurted that she was done looking. Realizing her slip, she cursed under her breath and quickly covered her face, embarrassed at how foolish she must have appeared. She thought she must have looked like a complete creep in front of him. Just then, the driver announced that they had reached their destination. Shi Yan remarked that 2 hours had passed and that she could leave now. To her surprise, Jung Shu Yi found herself in the middle of an empty field, confused about how she was supposed to get back from such a deserted place. She even questioned if she would need to ride a horse to return home, astonished that he truly intended to leave her there. Desperate to prolong the moment, she mentioned that she had one last question. She explained it was nothing serious, just trivial gossip, before nervously asking if he had a girlfriend. Shi Yang glanced at her, noticing the sincerity in her eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Shi Yang turned toward Jung Shu Yi, seemingly about to say something, when a voice from behind called out to him, asking if he had just arrived. Jung Shu Yi instantly recognized the man as Gun Xiangcheng, a distinguished figure and one of the most respected leaders in the financial world. He was considered a textbook example in the industry, someone whose reputation placed him at the very top. Jung Shu Yi greeted him politely, introducing herself as Jung Shu Yi, a reporter from Weekly Finance magazine. Gun Sheng responded warmly, mentioning that he had read several of her articles and found them impressive for their depth and clarity. He admitted he had not expected the author to be such a young woman, to which Jung Shu Yi replied modestly that he was flattering her. Passing by Shi Yan, Gun Xiang remarked that he had assumed Shi Yan had come alone, so he had not made any special preparations. Jung Shu Yi, hearing this, felt a flicker of confusion before realizing what he might have meant. The possibility that Gun Xiang mistook her for Shi Yan's girlfriend made her quietly giggle. Later, at a private ranch, Jung Shu Yi admired the scenery, remarking inwardly on how beautiful the place looked and how graceful the horses were. She put on a well-practiced act of admiration in front of Gun Xiang, who watched her with interest. Pointing to the sables, he explained that the highly valued horses were all inside and suggested she wait and see. Meanwhile, Jung Shu Yi felt a sharp gaze on her and turned to see Shi Yan watching her. When Shi Yan stated he would don't change, Jung Shu Yi quickly replied that she would wait patiently, prompting a small scoff from him. As Gun Xiang observed the interaction, he commented that it seemed as though she and Shi Yan had known each other for some time. Jung Shu Yi clarified that it had not been long since they first met. Gun Xiang nodded, adding that he could tell she seemed interested in horses and asked if she would like to learn how to ride one. Jung Shu Yi, surprised by the offer, asked if she really could. Gun Xiang assured her there was an old riding outfit belonging to his wife in the room, and if she didn't mind, she could wear it. Jung Shu Yi readily agreed. When she entered the changing room, excitement filled her thoughts. She had never ridden a horse before and looked forward to the experience. Just as she was about to step inside, she almost walked beside Shi Yan. Feeling his intense stare, she hurried past him into the room. While fastening the outfit, she realized the belt was giving her trouble. Hearing footsteps, she assumed Shi-yeon had finished changing. She called out, asking if he could help her with the belt. Shi-yeon stopped short and stated coldly that if she did not even know how to fasten it, then she should not ride at all, leaving Jung Shu Yi shocked. As Jung Shu Yi moved out with them, she reflected on what she had gathered from their earlier conversation. From the way they spoke, she realized that Shi-yeon and Gun-seong, or rather Gun-seong and Shi-yeon's father, shared a certain level of friendship. For someone like Shi-yeon, spending time with Gun-seong clearly showed that Gun-seong held a place of importance. Their bond was not one of affection but of reverence, so it was only natural that Shi-yeon would want to present himself in the best light before him. Gun-seong then turned to Jung Shu Yi, pointing to a horse and explaining that this one was the most gentle. He suggested that Shi-yeon should be the one to teach her how to ride it. Hearing this, Jung Shu Yi felt a sense of victory, convinced that this time Shi-yeon could not refuse her. She eagerly called out to him, "Horses." Climbing onto the horse, she called out again, asking if he could at least show her the basics. Instead of answering from the ground, Shi-yeon mounted the horse and sat directly behind her. Jung Shu Yi's mind went blank in embarrassment, screaming internally that this was not at all what she had meant when she asked him to teach her. When Shi-yeon questioned what was wrong, she quickly denied anything was amiss, saying she was only nervous because it was her first time riding. Shi-yeon accepted her response with a simple nod. As the horse began to move, they rode calmly at first. Jung Shu Yi could feel his warmth close to her, and she admitted to herself that she had not expected him to be this gentle. Just as she started to relax, Shi-yeon suddenly whipped the horse. The animal reared and charged forward with wild energy, leaping over fences again and again. Jung Shu Yi screamed in terror, clinging tightly to Shi-yeon and begging him to slow down. Her cries grew frantic until the horse finally eased its pace. Panting and shaken, Jung Shu Yi thought he had finally come to his senses. She told herself she would not forgive him regardless of what he said. Yet to her surprise, Shi-yeon calmly asked if she still wished to learn horse riding. Jung Shu Yi shouted in frustration, loudly denying with a firm no. Outside Jung Shu Yi's apartment, where she was preparing to leave, she assumed Shi-yeon had already driven away when she suddenly realized that one of her earrings was missing. Thinking it must have fallen in the car, she hurried toward it, only to see the vehicle speed off before she could reach it. She sighed helplessly, telling herself that it was worth only 50 yuan, but it had been a cute piece, and losing it left her feeling oddly disappointed. The next day at the office, Jung Shu Yi's friend Nan Nan approached her with a worried expression, asking if she had checked her phone. Jung Shu Yi shook her head, explaining that she had been buried in work, rushing to finish her report, and had not looked at her messages. Nan Nan told her something had happened in their group chat and it was not good. Curious, Jung Shu Yi asked what it was, and Nan Nan revealed that Shu Yuling had also gone to interview Shi-yeon the previous day. She explained that she had seen Shu Yuling's outline when she peeked inside the chief editor's office, and it was a complete copy of Jung Shu Yi's. Every single question had been identical. Jung Shu Yi froze, recalling the strange look Shi-yeon had given her during the interview. No wonder his expression had seemed so unusual. He must have thought she was simply repeating the same questions. She realized that as long as the results were good, the chief editor would not care about internal disputes, even if they bordered on rule-breaking. In the end, he would simply choose the strongest report. Still, Jung Shu Yi found it infuriating that she had to worry about someone else publishing her interview report when both belonged to her efforts. Furious, she muttered that she would confront the chief directly, but before she could move, a sharp ache in her thigh made her pause. Going to the bathroom, she checked and realized the bruise on her leg had worsened since last night. She had not noticed it while writing her script, but now it looked severe. She cursed Shi-yeon under her breath, convinced that the reckless horse ride was entirely his fault. Suddenly, she heard a loud bang as Shu Yuling barged in, accusing her of favoring Jung Shu Yi. Shu Yuling shouted that ever since Jung Shu Yi had joined the finance team, she had lost countless opportunities to her. She claimed that even Hong Chi seemed to side with Jung Shu Yi. Shu Yuling argued that while they had attended the same interview, Jung Shu Yi managed to extract more information, making her work look shallow in comparison. She bitterly added that no one knew what spells Jung Shu Yi had used on Shi-yeon. Jung Shu Yi emerged calmly from the bathroom, denying the accusation. She stated firmly that she had used no spell. It was simply that she was more competent and that Mr. Shi-yeon had preferred her mood that day. Shu Yuling's phone slipped from her hand in shock at Jung Shu Yi's boldness. Smiling, Jung Shu Yi added that while she had shamed Shu Yuling for stealing her questions, she had still won in the end. Inside, Jung Shu Yi bit her tongue, furious at the audacity of Shu Yuling's complaints. Yet outwardly, she displayed only confidence. She felt a surge of relief and happiness, realizing that the chief editor had chosen her report. Her exhaustion seemed to melt away. Her waist no longer ached and her legs did not hurt. She reminded herself that only by enduring hardship could she continue climbing to the top. Later, riding in a taxi with Nan Nan, her friend excitedly told her that she had made the top headline again. Nan Nan praised her, remarking how incredible it was that Shu Yuling had failed to surpass her even after plagiarizing her work. Nan Nan asked how things had been resolved with Shu Yuling. Jung Shu Yi admitted she did not fully know, saying that the chief editor had his own ways of settling matters. According to her, both reporters were part of the same team, and avoiding each other was impossible. The script was finalized, and Jung Shu Yi's piece was certain to become the top headline for the fourth quarter. She had told them to let the matter rest. Nan Nan cursed the unfairness, saying that lowly people would always act despicably, and there was nothing more they could do. When the taxi stopped, Jung Shu Yi prepared to step out, but suddenly rushed back inside, startling Nan Nan. Her friend asked if the ground outside had suddenly turned into lava. Jung Shu Yi shook her head, eyes teary, and admitted she had seen Jing Zhou. Nan Nan looked puzzled, asking if that wasn't her boyfriend. The mention of it only deepened Jung Shu Yi's frustration. Nan Nan pressed further, asking if the two of them had broken up. Jung Shu Yi remained silent, refusing to answer. Nan Nan smirked knowingly, saying that she must have been the one dumped. Still, Jung Shu Yi stayed quiet. Nan Nan pushed further, declaring that not only had she been dumped, but she had also been cheated on. Beads of sweat appeared on Jung Shu Yi's forehead as she cried out, asking how Nan Nan could guess so accurately. Nan Nan explained that she remembered Jing Zhou used to drive a Honda, but now he had switched to a Mercedes. It was obvious he had found a wealthy woman. She glanced at Jung Shu Yi's distressed face and added that it was only a Mercedes-Benz C-Class worth about 300,000 yuan, not such an impressive car. That meant the woman Jing Zhou cheated with was not even particularly rich. Jung Shu Yi, however, remembered Shi Yan's Rolls-Royce and Bentley. Compared to him, Jing Zhou seemed pathetic. Shi Yan could alternate between luxury cars at will, while Xing Zhou barely managed an average Mercedes. Clearly, he had not spoiled his new lover with much wealth. Meanwhile, in another place, Shi Yan sat in his car and noticed a small object wedged into the seat. Picking it up, he realized it was Jung Shu Yi's missing earring. Assistant Chen informed him that the reporter from Weekly Finance magazine was looking for him, claiming she had left something behind in his car. As Shi Yan answered the call, Jung Shu Yi addressed him as Director Shi Yan, mentioning that she believed she had accidentally left her earring in his car and asking if he had seen it, explaining that it was a pearl earring. Shi Yan, while taking out the earring, denied having seen it. Jung Shu Yi then asked if she could trouble him again to check, saying the earring was very important to her. Shi Yan questioned how important it really was. After a pause, Jung Shu Yi explained that an earring had been passed down from her grandmother to her mother and then to her. She described it as a family heirloom. She mentioned that she intended to wear it on her wedding day in the future, and whenever she saw it, it reminded her of her grandmother, whom she had not seen in a long time. As she spoke emotionally, Shi Yan swallowed and admitted that he had found it. When Jung Shu Yi said she would come out, Shi Yan told her that her so-called dowry was made of plastic. Jung Shu Yi explained that she did not want to trouble him by asking him to bring the earring over, so she asked for his address to collect it herself. The address he gave, however, was the Bugang Cloud Bay. She thought to herself that who else could possibly live there. She felt that her plan of portraying herself as a White Lotus was finally in motion. Upon entering, she noticed that the entrance had an automatic door. She walked in quietly, wondering why the place seemed so dark. The room remained silent as she caught sight of Shi Yan sitting calmly on a veranda. She found herself captivated by his appearance against the backdrop of the scenery, unable to take her eyes off him. Shi Yan then pointed out where the earring was, saying it was over there. Jung Shu Yi felt reassured, thinking that he had actually kept it safe for her. As she rushed forward to pick up her earring, she considered that if she did not come up with something to talk about, the situation would feel awkward. Her eyes fell on a CD and she thought it was a Song Belayan, her idol. She reflected that although Song Layan was extremely popular, Shi Yan did not strike her as the type to enjoy mainstream hits. Still, she thought it did not matter. She decided to speak, asking Shi Yan if he also liked Song Layan. She added that it was such a coincidence because she herself was a huge fan and even had the same vinyls in her own collection. She went on to ask which of Layan's songs he liked most, explaining that she personally enjoyed that kind of music. While speaking, her attention shifted toward a purse lying nearby. Her eyes lingered on it and she thought it was clearly a woman's purse, the kind a young lady would carry. She suddenly stammered inwardly, realizing that Shi Yan might actually have a girlfriend who was still inside the house. The thought unsettled her and she feared she had made a mistake, not wanting to face an unpleasant situation. She decided that it was best to excuse herself quickly. Jung Shu Yi then said she had retrieved her earring so she would take her leave. She thanked him for keeping it safe, wished him well, and said she would get going. Just as she prepared to leave, Shi Yan paused and remarked with surprise that she was leaving already. His words caught her off guard, leaving her startled. Jung Shu Yi mentioned that it was already late, so she did not want to cause any disturbance. She added that she still had reports to complete, so she should leave, and with that, she hurried off. While moving away, she thought about how she had simply assumed that Shi Yan had a girlfriend. She asked herself if she was really willing to give up her plans just because of a single assumption. Before discarding everything, she believed she should confirm it directly with him. With that thought, Jung Shu Yi turned back and approached Shi Yan. She asked whether she could borrow something from his girlfriend, mentioning that the purse she had seen in the room earlier seemed like his girlfriend. Shi Yan glanced at the purse lying nearby and denied it, saying she was mistaken. Jung Shu Yi gave a relieved smile, remarking that it was good to know. Shi Yan, however, smiled faintly and asked in what way it was good. Jung Shu Yi was caught off guard, unable to answer his question. She tried to explain that it was simply better to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Shi Yan asked what kind of misunderstanding she was referring to. As he stepped closer, his sharp presence made Jung Shu Yi feel uneasy. She wondered what exactly she was supposed to say in such a situation. Shi Yan leaned in further, questioning her about his niece, asking what she would misunderstand. His sudden closeness left Jung Shu Yi unsettled. Jung Shu Yi tried to brush it off, saying he need not worry. If it truly was his niece, then she thought it was fine. However, she suddenly realized that if she happened to run into that woman at this moment, it would be difficult to handle. She exclaimed that it would not be good if his niece misunderstood, then quickly announced her departure. She wished him a pleasant evening before running off. Just as she left, a young girl entered from behind, commenting on how quickly the sky had had darkened, considering she had only taken a nap at noon. She called out to her uncle, saying she thought she heard a woman's voice, asking if someone had visited. It was Qin Shiyue, Shi Yan's actual niece. Qin Shiyue silently wondered why her uncle was gazing at her so intently, and if she had unknowingly done something wrong. Qin Shiyue wondered aloud if she truly had to keep her job. She complained that everyone in her family was working hard to earn money, so at least one of them ought to be the one spending it. She pointed out that their family had more than enough wealth to last her 3 lifetimes. She added that even during her school years, she had never worked this hard, yet now she had to endure a 9-to-5 internship for only a few thousand yuan a month. She tried to smooth talk Shi Yan, saying they should let her slack off until the following year. However, Shi Yan cut her off sharply, telling her that their family did not raise freeloaders. The next day in the office, Nan asked if the editor-in-chief wanted her to handle training the new hire. Jung Shu Yi confirmed this arrangement. Nan remarked that the new hire seemed impressive, being not only good-looking but also possessing an excellent academic record. She mentioned that the person had even attended the same university as the editor-in-chief, calling it a rare talent. Nan added that she had heard the new hire placed second in a school-wide singing competition and even served as the president of the cosmetics club. Hearing this, Zhang Shuyi silently judged that the newcomer must be a nepo baby who had fallen on hard times. She realized she could not afford to cross such a person. She also thought that between managing her workload and her complicated romantic life, she hardly had the energy to train a spoiled intern. At that moment, a girl appeared from behind, asking if she was speaking to Miss Jung Shu Yi, explaining that HR had instructed her to report there. When Jung Shu Yi turned to look, the girl introduced herself as Qin Shiyue and said she would be under Jung Shu Yi's guidance. Jung Shu Yi responded confidently, saying they needed to go all out in finalizing their interview draft with Shi Yan. She decided it would be best to start assigning tasks to the intern. Handing Qin Shiyue a pen drive, she instructed her to organize the contents of a recent interview and prepare a draft. Qin Shiyue opened the file and immediately froze upon realizing that it was a recording of her uncle. She muttered in disbelief, questioning whether it really was him speaking in Chinese, and wondered why she could not understand a single word. She complained that he was using too much jargon. Qin Shiyue tried calling out to Zhang Shuyi for help, but Zhang Shuyi was focused on typing and did not respond. Qin Shiyue called again, louder this time, yet Zhang Shuyi still ignored her. Frustration Qin Shiyue in her as she thought to herself that no one had ever dared to ignore her before, and she found it intolerable. Later, when Zhang Shuyi finally finished her own tasks, she realized time had slipped by quickly. She decided to check on the intern and removed her earplugs, observing how tidy Qin Shiyue appeared. She thought the girl did not seem very enthusiastic about working. Meanwhile, at Shi Yan's family home, Qin Shiyue complained that work was boring her to death. She said she was supposed to be a reporter, not a typist, yet she had been asked to transcribe a recording on her very first day. Her mother, Son Yuelin, Shi Yan's elder sister, asked what exactly had happened. Her father, Qin Xiaoming, also questioned her about the detail. He reminded Qin Shiyue that he had already met Zhang Shuyi and thought she seemed reliable, suggesting that Qin Shiyue could stand to learn from her. Qin Shiyue retorted by asking if Zhang Shuyi was even willing to teach her. Qin Xiaoming pressed further, but Qin Shiyue avoided his gaze and turned toward Shi Yan, babbling nervously. Suddenly, Shi Yan picked up his phone and remarked that he was done eating. Qin Shiyue trembled inside, realizing he was the one who had arranged her internship at Finance Weekly. She hoped desperately that he would back her up. The following morning, as Zhang Shuyi entered the office with a cheerful greeting, Nan asked if something good had happened. Zhang Shuyi explained that the editor-in-chief had really liked their final draft, and that they were only waiting for Shi Yan's approval. She added that the email had just arrived. However, when she opened it, she was shocked to find the response stating that the article had not been approved. Zhang Shuyi was stunned when she saw the rejection. She quickly decided she would simply revise the article again. Yet despite her repeated attempts, none of her efforts received approval. Nan pointed out that the feedback did not even contain any suggestions, and since it was their first time interviewing Shi Yan, she had never imagined he would maintain such high standards. She tried to lift Zhang Shuyi's spirits, half-jokingly asking if Zhang Shuyi thought he might be holding a grudge. Zhang Shuyi dismissed the idea, reasoning that he would not be so petty. Meanwhile, Qin Shiyue thought differently, believing her uncle had done it deliberately for her sake, remarking to herself that it was something only her uncle would do. As Shu Yuling passed by, she sarcastically reminded Zhang Shuyi that she had once said Shi Yan appreciated her competence. Yet, with her article stuck in review, his remark only added to her frustration. Zhang Shuyi thought anxiously about the looming deadline, realizing she could not continue revising blindly without receiving any clear feedback. In desperation, she rushed to the editor-in-chief and asked if she could provide Shi Yan's phone number, saying she would go question him personally. Later, at Bogang Cloud Bay, Shi Yan returned home and noticed Zhang Shuyi waiting for him outside in the cold. She called out to him as he approached. He asked calmly why she seemed intent on confronting him, while Zhang Shuyi nervously debated how to phrase her concern. She considered asking directly if he was unsatisfied with her work, but she felt that would sound too blunt. Instead, she awkwardly said she thought perhaps he wanted to see her, so she had come to him. The moment she spoke, she regretted the phrasing, realizing it sounded careless. Shi Yan asked how she had arrived at such a conclusion, and Zhang Shuyi thought that in situations like this, she could only stand her ground. She questioned why else he would keep sending her story back without answering her calls. Shi Yan admitted that he was unsatisfied. Zhang Shuyi pressed further, asking what exactly he disliked, promising she would fix it if he only pointed it out. She insisted that she was capable. Shi Yan, however, turned as though to leave. Zhang Shuyi was shocked, reminding herself that the deadline was imminent and that she had worked tirelessly for this feature story, unwilling to abandon it now. In desperation, she cried out that perhaps he simply wanted to see her, Shi Yan smiled faintly at her words, while Jung Shu Yi cursed herself for letting such things slip. To her surprise, Shi Yan then asked her to come inside. Jung Shu Yi thought he could easily sense her desperation as she stood there shivering. Yet what unsettled her most was that he had actually invited her inside. She felt confused, wondering if he was genuinely taken in by her charm. She convinced herself that where there was a will, there was always a way, and perhaps she truly was both beautiful and talented enough to hold his attention. Shi Yan asked her to take a seat and begin revising the draft for revision. Jung Shu Yi realized that his intention was purely work-related, that he only wanted her to polish the draft. As she watched him pour himself a drink, he turned and asked if she would prefer some water. Jung Shu Yi replied that she would like whatever he was pouring, only to hear him remark that it was wine. She quickly affirmed she knew that, pretending not to be flustered. When the wine was set before her, she felt a sudden sense of delight, though her mood shifted when Shi Yan's phone rang. Qin Shiyue's voice came through, asking her uncle if she could drop off some wine for him, explaining she had someone secure a fine bottle for her at an auction. Shi Yan refused, glancing toward Jung Shui's reflection as his gaze lingered. He told Qin Shiyue that he was rather busy. Qin Shiyue teased him, questioning if he was hiding a woman in that golden house of his, prompting Shi Yan to cut the call short. Jung Shu Yi took the opportunity to present a revision, asking if he could review it. Shi Yan remarked that it was too wordy. Flustered, she promised to refine it further. He muttered softly about a golden house for his beloved, smiling faintly at the phrase. For the next 2 hours, Shi Yan continued rejecting her drafts with reasons such as needing more conciseness, sections misrepresenting his meaning, or instructing her to figure it out herself. Determined, Zhang Shuyi revised again and handed it over with confidence. This time, Shi Yan finally admitted it looked good. Zhang Shuyi's face lit up with relief as she smiled, insisting that even if he found no issues, she could still keep improving it, as there was always room for refinement. Shi Yan thought it best to stop there. He then asked if she did not mind spending hours alone with a man inside his house and whether a boyfriend might object. Jing Shuyi calmly replied that she had no boyfriend, explaining that they had broken up on the very night she first met him. Hearing those words, Shi Yan gave a faint smile, questioning her intention. Jung Shuyi appeared puzzled by his tone, wondering if he had just hinted at something. She then asked if she could pursue him. The scene shifted as Qin Shiyue entered Shi Yan's house humming, only to meet Jung Shuyi there. Jung Shuyi remarked that it was quite a coincidence, asking if Qin Shiyue lived there. She explained that she had come to meet someone. With a casual smile, she added that it looked like it might rain later and reminded Qin Shiyue to carry an umbrella to work tomorrow before leaving. Qin Shiyue brushed off her doubts, though she wondered why Zhang Shuai had been there. She then walked in toward her uncle, announcing that she'd brought the wine. Spotting a glass with a lipstick mark, she quickly realized that her uncle had not been alone. Her curiosity deepened, thinking there must have been a woman present. Shi Yan looked irritated and asked if he had not told her not to come. Qin Shiyue insisted that good things should be delivered in person, questioning if he was alone at the moment. With clear annoyance, Shi Yan ordered her to set the wine down and return home, to which she agreed. Yet in her thoughts, she felt convinced that his reaction confirmed her suspicion, wondering if the woman she had run into earlier was the one. At her own home, Zhang Shuyi reflected on her actions, thinking she might have been reckless for saying such words to Shi Yan. He asked her if she would give up if he said no. She had firmly denied it. He then asked why she had bothered to ask him at all. Zhang Shuyi explained that she was only following the proper approach out of respect. To her surprise, Shi Yan abruptly denied her request and dismissed her, telling her to leave. As she departed, she cheerfully stated that she would add him on WeChat once she got home. Though he had not replied, she assumed it to be a silent approval and later believed he had accepted her friend request. Soon after, Zhang Shuyi received a message from her former college roommate Bai Ruoshan, who mentioned hearing about her breakup with Xingzhou. Zhang Shuyi confirmed it while he pointed out that social media was full of it. Xingzhou was traveling with another woman, which he criticized as foolish. Seeing the photograph left Zhang Shuyi downhearted, but she reminded herself to move on, convincing herself that more important matters awaited her. She messaged Shi Yan after reaching home, asking if he had gone to bed, mentioning that she had been waiting for his reply. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed and she eagerly checked it, thinking he had finally responded. His reply was brief and cold, a simple NT as no thanks. Seeing the message, Zhang Shuyi felt a shudder run through her entire body, yet almost immediately she woke from her dream, realizing it had been nothing more than a figment of her imagination. She reassured herself that she would never make such a joke, but still, the fact that he had not even replied left a sting in her chest. At least a no thanks would have been preferable to absolute silence. The following day at the office, whispers circulated among the staff about Zhang Shuyi's work being repeatedly returned. Her work had always been exceptional, yet this was unprecedented. Colleagues speculated whether she had somehow offended someone, while Qin Shiyue thought silently that even if her uncle had a reason, he should not torment her like this. Zhang Shuyi soon appeared, calling for Qin Shiyue and asking if she could speak to her for a moment. Qin Shiyue was taken aback at the sight of Zhang Shuyi's exhausted and overworked appearance. Zhang Shuyi explained that the editor-in-chief had requested her presence at an event. Qin Shiyue paused, confused. Was Zhang Shuyi not the auntie after all? Zhang Shuyi clarified with a small smile that it was a press conference hosted by Mingyu Bank and reminded Qin Shiyue that Shi Yan from the recording he had transcribed would be attending as well. well. Jung Shu Yi was so shocked that she could barely respond. Later, at a Mingyu group office, Jung Shu Yi accompanied Jung Shu Yi. She questioned why they were going to the front rather than taking seats at the back. Jung Shu Yi explained that it was harder to hear from the back, smiling reassuringly. As the press conference began and the speakers were introduced, Shi Yan appeared among them. Jung Shu Yi's gaze froze upon seeing his handsome face once more. She smiled subtly in his direction, only for Shi Yan to turn away, leaving her puzzled. Unable to resist, Jung Shu Yi messaged him discreetly, complimenting how handsome he looked that day and joking that the event felt more like a charm exhibition than a press conference. When he ignored her message, she continued, exaggerating that she would rather climb Mount Everest wearing a heel on one foot and a shoe filled with rocks on the other than watch him follow his friends. Sending an emoji for emphasis, she glanced at him only to meet a cold stare. She quickly closed her phone, chastising herself for the impulsive act. Jung Shu Yi, sensing tension, turned to Jung Shu Yi and said he wanted to step outside for fresh air. Jung Shu Yi asked if something was wrong, suggesting she might not be accustomed to these kinds of events. Jung Shu Yi admitted nervously that director Shi Yan kept looking at her, which made her feel uneasy. Jung Shu Yi smiled reassuringly, telling her not to be afraid, explaining that he was only observing her. Soon, a man approached Jung Shu Yi, introducing himself as He Boming, a reporter from Zhangcheng Daily. He mentioned that he had read her articles and had long wished to meet her. Jung Shu Yi greeted him politely. He shared that he had interned at Finance Weekly immediately after graduation under Tang Yi, who was Jung Shu Yi's current editor-in-chief. He Boming realized they were practically half colleagues. He suggested they add each other on WeChat to share professional tips in the future. Jung Shu Yi agreed, thinking that an additional connection could only benefit her. She glanced at Shi Yan, noting once again that his gaze lingered on her, and wondered why it seemed different this time. Jung Shu Yi noticed Shi Yan standing up, calling for her and asking her to come over and follow him. He Boming mentioned that he had told her to follow him. Jung Shu Yi felt a sudden warmth, interpreting it as jealousy, and smiled while laughing lightly, questioning inwardly what it could be as she followed Shi Yan. He requested her to sit down, while Jung Shu Yi anticipated that he might need to hurry and admit his jealousy. Shi Yan approached her, inquiring about the female reporter seated beside her and the one accompanying her. Jung Shu Yi wondered if his question was merely about Jung Shu Yi, realizing with a start that perhaps he had been watching Jung Shu Yi the entire time. She decided she would reach out to Jung Shu Yi, though a thought occurred that if Shi Yan wanted her to act as a messenger, it implied he wasn't particularly close to her, and she was merely a tool to be used. Jung Shu Yi called for Jung Shu Yi and asked her whereabouts. Jung Shu Yi replied that she was in the cafe outside, having stepped out briefly to escape the stuffiness. Jung Shu Yi remarked that she had already left, but Jung Shu Yi reassured her not to worry. Jung Shu Yi, in turn, abruptly stated that there was no need to come in, leaving Jung Shu Yi confused by her words. Jung Shu Yi suggested that Jung Shu Yi get some rest, announcing that she would hang up now. She reiterated that she had already left. Shi Yan asked where she had gone, and Jung Shu Yi explained that she had not been feeling well, so she had gone home. Shi Yan questioned again how she could not have felt well. Jung Shu Yi's mind wondered if he expected her to report even her lunch habits. She explained that she suffered from a form of director phobia, and whenever she faced a distinguished figure like him, she felt unwell, experiencing shortness of breath. She denied it aloud, yet inwardly acknowledged that whenever she looked at him, her heart swelled with joy almost unbearably, making her intensely happy. Shi Yan turned his face away, prompting Jung Shu Yi to fear she had lost his attention, that his interest had waned. At that moment, Assistant Shen entered, announcing that the intermission was almost over. Shi Yan departed without noticing Jung Shu Yi's powdered face. After the conference, Jung Shu Yi left, reflecting on how Jung Shu Yi had not returned, leaving her to feel once more like the second choice. She glanced at Shi Yan and saw Jung Shu Yi with him, smiling outwardly, realizing that from the beginning, the one he truly cared for had never been her. She remembered Jung Shu Yi's words about Shi Yan constantly looking at her and understood that she had been fated to end up in this position. Shi Yan moved away from Jung Shu Yi to glance in Jung Shu Yi's direction. Yet Jung Shu Yi felt she could no longer entertain any hope. She concluded that he could not perceive her feeling as she moved away, thinking that everything had been a one-sided affair. The thought that this had always been her place, destined to fade in the background, lingered as she left, carrying a quiet acceptance of the unrequited emotion she had harbored. As Jung Shu Yi walked up, she thought that he had probably left already. She glanced behind and noticed Shi Yan standing beside his car. As he glanced back at her, Jung Shu Yi wondered if he was toying with her by lingering there. She thought that this was not how the script was supposed to unfold. She questioned what his deal was, neither accepting her advances nor rejecting them, all while seemingly messing around with other women. He had claimed he did not have a girlfriend, so why did she feel as though she had been discarded? Upon further reflection, she asked herself who the hunter was and who the hunted really was. She wondered why, after all her efforts, this was the outcome. Just then, Shi Yan appeared beside her and asked what she was standing there for. Jung Shu Yi replied that she was praying. Shi Yan stated that he was heading back, to which Jung Shu Yi abruptly responded by bidding farewell. At that moment, her phone displayed a message indicating that she had failed to reach the pickup point within the allotted time and her ride had been cancelled. Without hesitation, Shi Yan held her and suggested that they should go together. He would give her a ride. During the car ride, Jung Shu Yi resolved to suffer in silence, telling herself that she would grin and bear it all for the sake of revenge. She thought that even the slightest impatience could ruin well-laid plans. Shi Yan occasionally glanced at her sullen face, then slid his phone's volume to low while continuing his conversation. He observed the various moods crossing her face and the subtle actions she made, all while trying to maintain his composure during the call. After ending his call, he noticed that Jung Shu Yi had fallen asleep. He silently kept his phone aside as she began to lean toward him. He stopped her abruptly by placing his hand gently against her, guiding her face back onto the seat. heat. As his fingers brushed her lips, he felt a peculiar flutter in his chest. Afterwards, as Jung Shu Yi woke up, she suddenly felt shocked, questioning how she had fallen asleep again and wondering whether Shi Yan was still sitting beside her. As Shi Yan addressed her, Jung Shu Yi questioned if he had had to wait long because of her, which Shi Yan denied. While Jung Shu Yi thought she should say something to lighten the mood, Shi Yan questioned whether she was getting off or planning on living in the car, which Jung Shu Yi denied, teasing, "Wouldn't that be nice?" However, Shi Yan, with a cold stare, called her out, stating he was a busy man. Jung Shu Yi abruptly bid farewell as she moved out, thanking him for the ride and stating she would see him around. As they moved out, Shi Yan felt his hand and fingers brush against Jung Shu Yi's face, while his assistant stated that it was rush hour, so the commute would take longer than usual and they might arrive late. Shi Yan affirmed that he paid no heed. Meanwhile, Jung Shu Yi thought about the situation in the car and realized she finally got it. Shi Yan had clearly gone out of his way. He was obviously busy, yet he insisted on giving her a ride. She concluded he was trying to appease her. Jung Shu Yi felt delighted, convinced he must have known she was upset after seeing him flirt with Qin Shiyue. While taking the brush, Jung Shu Yi thought something still felt off. He flirted with Qin Shiyue and then came to appease her later. She grew increasingly angry as she realized the truth. Shi Yan was a scumbag all along. Puffing up her pillow, she thought he may have ulterior motives for approaching her. Still, at least she did not play the field and had put her whole heart into wooing him. But she thought she had to forget all of this. She decided not to brood over the matter anymore. Maybe it was better this way, since both the uncle and niece acted like players, allowing her to carry out her plan without feeling guilty. It was not like she actually liked him anyway, and she should not feel this unexplainable misery as she tried to pull herself together. The next day, during a conference, the editor-in-chief stated that before they started the morning meeting, they had good news to announce. The sales for their issue last weekend had doubled, and their online readership had skyrocketed. Jung Shu Yi's interview in particular had received many positive responses. It had generated a heated discussion in their circle, and everyone should give a round of applause for their MVP. Jung Shu Yi smiled at the applause, though her mind wandered elsewhere. Afterwards, at work, as Jung Shu Yi typed out the report, Qin Shiyue thought she might be imagining things. That had obviously been a commendation ceremony, yet Jung Shu Yi did not seem happy. She thought, is it because of her uncle? Did he give her a hard time? Even though Qin Shiyue had been the one to complain, she had never thought the uncle would go so far. Shu Yu Ling came beside Jung Shu Yi, questioning why she seemed so off today and whether she should not be happy after writing such a big hit. He suggested they should celebrate with dinner together later, but Jung Shu Yi gave no response as she continued typing. Shu Yu Ling taunted Jung Shu Yi, asking if he was upset because of a recent breakup with her boyfriend, but Jung Shu Yi gave no reaction. This silence made Shu Yu Ling scream and slam the table, calling out that he was talking to her and asking if she knew how to show some respect to others. Jung Shu Yi unplugged her earbuds, asking if he was talking to her, given she had noise-canceling earphones in and the volume on high. She had been immersed in her work, unable to hear anything. Qin Shiyue, overhearing this, turned toward Jung Shu Yi, thinking back to a time when Jung Shu Yi had not been able to hear properly because of the same reason. Now she thought about it carefully. Jung Shu Yi did not seem like the type to ignore others intentionally. She realized she had misunderstood Jung Shu Yi all along. Jung Shu Yi had never been the type to take advantage of others, but Qin Shiyue could not deny having caused her trouble. She wondered how she could fix it. The next day, as Jung Shu Yi dressed up, she thought she felt much better now after cleaning her apartment thoroughly. The only issue lingering in her mind was what to do about those 2 tickets for the concert tomorrow night. She did not have anyone to go with. Suddenly, her phone buzzed and a friend request from Sai Lucky appeared. Jung Shu Yi questioned who this could be. She did not share her WeChat ID with anyone, and if a friend had shared her contact card, they would have told her first. A light of realization struck her. Unless it was Shi Yan. Her excitement surged as she thought this boring moments page had to be him. She messaged, asking if he had finally added her on WeChat. When there was no reply, Jung Shu Yi asked if he was going to sleep soon. The response came stating it was still early. Jung Shu Yi continued by texting that she just saw the concert tickets and wondered who she should attend with. She asked if he was free tomorrow. Jung Shu Yi pouted, thinking she would give him another chance, convinced he would not reject her. The message came back, affirming that he was going. She then questioned whether they should go together, and the reply came in the affirmative. Hearing this, Jung Shu Yi grew delighted, wondering what she should wear tomorrow. Her heart filled with anticipation, believing that she would finally win him over. The next day, as Jung Shu Yi dressed up carefully, she thought about how those idol dramas always claimed headbands were the best way to look cute. She reasoned she must trick him into wearing one, and becoming naughty would be a piece of cake. Just then, a car sped by, and Jung Shu Yi thought it must be him, noticing how he seemed to feel the need to show off with a personalized license plate. A flashy car like this was exactly the kind of vehicle Shi Yan would drive. As Jung Shu Yi called out for him, she froze at the sight of long socks. Qin Shiyue stepped out of the car instead. Jung Shu Yi remarked what a coincidence it was, convincing herself it was normal for the singer to be so popular. King Shiyue questioned whether Jung Shu Yi hadn't been the one who invited her all along. Jung Shu Yi thought she had been certain it was Shi Yan she had invited. Her mind raced, convinced Shiyue must be Qin Shiyue. Qin Shiyue poked Jung Shu Yi lightly, questioning if she was alright, and Jung Shu Yi cursed herself for getting it totally wrong. At the concert, Jung Shu Yi thought she had misunderstood everything. She cursed Shi Yan silently, wondering why he did not pick up her calls nor read her messages. She questioned why she kept getting snubbed despite her blatant affection and his sudden hot and cold behavior. Why didn't he just be more straightforward? Why was he toying with her emotions? As the singer's voice filled the air, Jung Shu Yi cried out internally, thinking about how dreary she felt and why it had to be this way. Suddenly, Suddenly, King Shiyue questioned what was wrong with her, noticing her teary eyes and asked if she was in a bad mood. Jung Shu Yi admitted she might not know but thought it could be because of a recent breakup. Qin Shiyue mentioned having heard a little about it. Jung Shu Yi explained that he had chased after her for such a long time everyone had assumed she was the only one for him. Then, not long after they got together, he had done a complete 180 and cheated on her. Jung Shu Yi screamed internally, blaming everything on the fact that the other woman's family was rich and she had an amazing uncle. Qin Shiyue, clearly annoyed, stated that such a person deserved to be chopped into pieces, which Jung Shu Yi wholeheartedly affirmed. Jung Shu Yi added that was why she couldn't let it go. She wouldn't allow them to live their lives peacefully. Coincidentally, her own uncle seemed interested in her at first, so her plan was to win him over and become their auntie. Qin Shiyue confirmed the idea, insisting that Jung Shu Yi must win her uncle over, be the auntie, and create havoc within his family, and if she didn't, she couldn't call herself a true Chinese citizen. Their zeal only grew as the concert continued. After hours of screaming and dancing, Jung Shu Yi's back felt sore. Her neck and shoulders ached, and she was utterly drained. She thought humans shouldn't act too crazy. After a while, she felt as if she had lost half of her life. Knowing Qin Shiyue must have left early with something else to do, Jung Shu Yi decided she would call for a ride home. She frowned at the fact she was the 88th person waiting in line, thinking she should have gone somewhere less crowded and tried again. She stumbled slightly, concluding it was time to retire this pair of shoes forever, as she pleaded silently for a ride to appear. Then, she glanced up and saw a familiar car. It was Shi Yan's, and the vehicle was heading straight toward her. As Shi Yan stopped just in front of Jung Shu Yi, she felt quite confused and gasped. Though cheered up by his presence, Jung Shu Yi whispered to Shi Yan that she had sprained her ankle and blamed him, stating it was all his fault. She pouted at him, demanding he take responsibility. This made Shi Yan smile slightly, but he continued driving past without hesitation. Jung Shu Yi couldn't believe he thought she had merely slipped, while she could barely walk now. She questioned why her foot felt as flimsy as paper. A worker standing nearby asked if she needed help, which Jung Shu Yi denied, insisting that her boyfriend was coming to pick her up. She thought Shi Yan was so heartless and cursed silently, convinced he must have a prescription of -15 lacking an ounce of kindness or a shred of honor. If she were not pretty or cute, why wouldn't he even spare a second glance? She wondered if he deliberately averted his eyes from beautiful people, thinking he might as well donate them to a hot pot restaurant if he was not using them. She kicked out in frustration but winced in pain, thinking that in every reincarnation he had always been a needled person. Just then, Shi Yan sped up and stopped beside her. Jung Shu Yi began rambling about a flower, promising to explain everything after getting in the car. She climbed in as he opened the door for her. Shi Yan questioned that 10 minutes had passed and still no explanation came. She asked him not to be impatient, reminding him that she still had 90 minutes left in her exam. She groaned, feeling the pain in her ankle deepen. Shi Yan advised her to keep her voice down. They moved toward the family healthcare hospital, and Jung Shu Yi was shocked to discover it was a rehabilitation center owned by Shi Yan's family. As Shi Yan got out of the car, he instructed her to get off. Jung Shu Yi groaned in pain, stating that her ankle hurt and she could not get up. She added that he must have seen it too, and reminded him that if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have had to walk all that way with a sprained ankle. Shi Yan feigned blindness, claiming he didn't see anything since he had donated his eyes to a hot pot restaurant. Jung Shu Yi cried out, telling him not to be so petty, and playfully threw her arm around Shi Yan while giggling, asking him to carry her. Shi Yan bowed slightly and warned her not to push her luck. Jung Shu Yi insisted that she wasn't. Yet, to her surprise, Shi Yan picked her up in an instant. Her expression shifted from smug to surprised as she realized he carried her in his arms rather than on his back, which was what she had been hinting at. The unexpected gesture left her stunned, and a mixture of embarrassment and delight spread across her face. She wondered silently if this was another of his peculiar ways of teasing her. Shi Yan remained expressionless, carrying her steadily toward the entrance. Jung Shu Yi thought about how unpredictable he was and how, despite all his cold remarks, he seemed to take care of her when it really mattered. While hugging Shi Yan, Jung Shu Yi felt how close she was. She caught a faint woody scent of him and the sound of his steady breathing. She had thought that this block of wood had no heart, yet it actually had a pulse. She groaned inwardly, realizing she had come this far. Who knew when she might get such a chance again? She whispered to Shi Yan, asking if his ex-girlfriend had ever told him how good he looked from this angle, softly murmuring it in his ear. For a moment, Shi Yan released his hand, causing her to jolt and ask if her ex-boyfriend had ever told her that she was really heavy, making her pout in denial. Jung Shu Yi reflected, wondering why she could not be the first ex to say such a thing, feeling triumphant in her small victory. As the doctor tended to her, she remarked that she had been quite gentle, to which Jung Shu Yi admitted she was not very good with pain while sneaking a glance at Shi Yan, who appeared completely unbothered. Shi Yan answered a call as he moved out, prompting Jung Shu Yi to cry out that she actually had a high pain tolerance. The doctor advised her not to put on a show for him, commenting that it was no wonder she had not considered her case serious. She instructed her to apply ice within 48 hours of returning home, followed by a hot compress, and to take medicine to improve blood circulation if the pain intensified. Jung Shu Yi nodded, affirming her understanding as the doctor cautioned her against massages and excessive walking. He suggested asking her boyfriend for help if needed. Jung Shu Yi mentioned that her boyfriend was quite handsome but seemed a bit cold and insensitive. The doctor quickly told her not to say that he was not insensitive but rather protective of her. While Shi Yan was hearing all of this outside, Jung Shu Yi insisted that he was utterly heartless. She wondered where he had gone and why he had not returned yet, questioning if he he could have simply left. The doctor explained that he had likely gone to pay the bill. Jung Shu Yi continued her Oscar-worthy performance just as the wheelchair arrived. Outside, Shi-yan waited while Jung Shu Yi was brought out in the wheelchair. She looked at him with a playful expression, admitting that she still could not move her foot. As Shi-yan approached, Jung Shu Yi felt confident that he could not refuse her this small triumph. This victory would bring them one step closer. Suddenly, Jung Shu Yi noticed some creatures nearby and screamed, hugging Shi-yan tightly, exclaiming that there were rats. In the midst of the hug, she realized her foot pressed against Shi-yan's boot. She asked through her tears if she could explain everything once they got into the car. In the car, Shi-yan was on a call as the other person asked if he was acquainted with Beilin, inquiring whether they were friends. She wanted Beilin to star in a film, but they could not reach an agreement on her compensation. Jung Shu Yi thought of Beilin as a popular actress, far more renowned than normals. The person then asked if Shi-yan had any connections who might mediate between them. Shi-yan stated that he considered Beilin's acting average, while the passenger in his car, a far better actress, let out a soft groan at the comparison. At Jung Shu Yi's home, she pondered her recent streak of misfortune. She had misidentified someone caught in an embarrassing act. She could die from shame if anyone found out. At this point, she resolved to see things through to the very end, no matter how awkward it became. Jung Shu Yi gently messaged Shi-yan, mentioning that she almost forgot she still owed him for the medical bill from earlier. To her surprise, Shi-yan messaged first, asking her to check her WeChat. Jung Shu Yi's eyes widened in shock, thinking he had actually replied. Upon seeing Shi-yan's WeChat message, she asked if it was really him, to which Shi-yan replied casually, asking who else it could be. Jung Shu Yi asked about the amount of her medical bill so she could transfer the money, but Shi-yan denied any need for repayment. Jung Shu Yi reasoned that it was his family's hospital, yet she insisted on transferring 3,000 yen to ensure she did not owe him anything. To her confusion, Shi-yan refunded the money almost immediately. She questioned how she could possibly repay him, to which he replied that she should consider it compensation for her acting earlier. Jung Shu Yi wondered if that was all her Oscar-worthy performance was worth. Shi-yan asked how much she thought it deserved. Jung Shu Yi's mind raced with ideas, eventually settling on the thought of inviting him to dinner the next day. Meanwhile, Song Yuelin mentioned that Shi-yan had arrived just as the celebration dinner was ending. Shi-yan explained that he had been delayed because he was tied up while he was on the phone. Qin Xiaoming called out, asking Shi-yan if he was attending Mr. Cheng's dinner party the following day, and requested that Qin Shiyue accompany him. Qin Shiyue grew flustered at the suggestion, signaling to Shi-yan with urgent gestures not to make her go. Shi-yan replied, explaining that there were not enough seats for her as to relieve her. Soon after, he messaged Jung Shu Yi, stating that he would pick her up at 5 the next day, which brought a smile to her face. The following day, Jung Shu Yi found herself perplexed by the wardrobe options, unsure of what to wear. She messaged Shi-yan for advice, and he simply replied that she should wear the red one. Jung Shu Yi wondered if he was speaking casually or if he truly could not see colors. Then she recalled the day she had gone horseback riding, realizing that she had worn a red riding outfit, and concluded that it must be the same one he meant. Later, as Jung Shu Yi arrived at the shop to be dressed in the red outfit, the receptionist complimented her, stating that it looked wonderful on her. Suddenly, Jung Shu Yi felt a flicker of recognition just outside, prompting her to glance outside, where she spotted Jing Zhou with his girlfriend. She cursed quietly, realizing she had stumbled upon yet another relationship wrecker. At that moment, Qin Shiyue messaged her, asking what she was doing for the weekend, admitting her boredom. Jung Shu Yi explained that she had gone dress shopping and unexpectedly encountered her boyfriend's dealer. Qin Shiyue screamed in surprise, urgently asking for her location. Zhang Shu Yi replied that she was at the shop, and Qin Shiyue immediately stated that she was nearby and would be there soon.
Jung Shu Yi stood in silence, convincing herself that it would be wiser to wait until Yu and Xingzhou left. She counted the passing minutes, telling herself to remain patient. 5 minutes stretched into 10 while she listened to them criticize the dress she had been eyeing. She claimed it looked like something suited for a middle-aged woman, scoffing at the design as if it were beneath them. Jung Shu Yi kept waiting, but they showed no signs of leaving. Their voices grew even more unbearable as they went on for nearly an hour, arguing that the dress appeared tight in all the wrong places and that its color drained their natural complexion. Jung Shu Yi found their endless commentary exhausting. She had already concluded privately that people incapable of minding their own business usually made terrible parents. 50 minutes of pointless chatter finally pushed her past her limit. She wondered why she was tormenting herself when she had done nothing wrong. It was not as if she were the one who had cheated, so why was she acting as though she had something to be ashamed of? Realizing there was no reason to hide, she stood up with resolve and marched toward the reception. When she walked out wearing the elegant red dress, the receptionist, Yu Ye, and Xingzhou were visibly stunned. The receptionist immediately remarked that the dress complemented her figure perfectly and that her skin looked radiant under the fabric. She went as far as to claim that the dress seemed as though it had been tailored specifically for her, even daring to suggest that it suited Jung Shu Yi better than it did their official model. She added that this was the last piece available in that size and insisted that Jung Shu Yi should not even consider trying on a different one because nothing else would compare. Jung Shu Yi gave a composed nod, agreeing that it was not bad, and mentioned that she would take a quick photo before deciding. She stepped aside and captured a picture of herself in the mirror, then sent it to Shi Yan without any caption, who happened to be in the middle of a meeting with several executives. Paused the moment he saw the notification. His breath caught slightly, prompting curious glances from across the table. One of them asked quietly if everything was all right, but he simply waved it off, requesting that they continue while discreetly typing back a reply that the dress looked ugly. Jung Shu Yi stared at the message with disbelief, muttering under her breath about how it would not hurt him to offer a single compliment. Meanwhile, the receptionists were busy assisting other customers who had now taken an interest in the same red gown. Several of them asked if they could try it on, but the receptionist apologetically explained that only 2 pieces had been stocked, both currently being worn. Yu, while examining the same dress, glanced in Jung Shu Yi's direction and made an offhand remark, though she caught herself mid-sentence when she noticed Xingzhou staring at her. She immediately yelled at him to look elsewhere. Jung Shu Yi considered leaving then and there, but she realized that walking out would make it seem like she had been intimidated, which she refused to allow. She decided to remain and pretended to browse through other garments casually. Yu soon walked over to her, implying that they clearly shared similar taste. Jung Shu Yi sensed the provocation and recognized that Yu was trying to start something. She reminded herself that she knew how to handle such games. As they continued choosing dresses, they ended up picking almost identical styles, prompting the receptionist to cheerfully compliment them both, saying that they looked even more impressive with each outfit change. Yu had clung to Xingzhou's arm by then, acting overly clingy with him while asking if he could pay for all the dresses she had liked. She conveniently declared that she liked every single one she had tried on. At that moment, Qin Shiyue strolled in and asked Jung Shu Yi if she had settled on anything yet. She reassured her not to worry and offered to help her select from the options she had just worn. The receptionist politely asked if she should start preparing everything for billing. Qin Shiyue immediately pulled out an American Express card and instructed her to exclude a few specific sets, stating that she would purchase everything else in Jung Shu Yi's size. Jung Shu Yi was taken aback and tried to stop her, insisting that it was unnecessary, but Qin Shiyue casually explained that the card was a supplementary one given by her uncle, who did not care what she spent on. Jung Shu Yi was caught between amazement and mild confusion, quietly wondering if this was what financial freedom felt like. Qin Shiyue then turned to Yu, thanking her mockingly for picking out all the worst options earlier and leaving the best ones for them. Yu's face turned red as she demanded to know what she was implying. Xingzhou attempted to calm them down by remarking that the dresses they had tried earlier truly had not been that great. Yui shot back instantly, accusing him of staring at her intensely as though his eyes were about to fall out. Once the purchases were finalized, Qin Shiyue asked Jung Shu Yi if she felt satisfied, suggesting that nothing lifted the spirit quite like outshining someone who had been trying too hard. Jung Shu Yi admitted that she did feel better and casually added that she had a date that evening. Qin Shiyue raised an eyebrow, asking if it was with that so-called little uncle, wanting to know how things were progressing. As they giggled together, Qin Shiyue then proposed that they continue shopping afterward. Jung Shu Yi, however, quietly planned to return most of the clothes in a few days. In her mind, there was still no assurance that Shi Yan intended to accept her. Later, as Shi Yan waited inside the car, he saw her exit the building gracefully in the stunning red dress. He rolled down the window slightly, calling her name and asking her to get in. After getting into the car, Jung Shu Yi sat stiffly while clutching her shopping bags, feeling strangely nervous. She silently hoped he would not assume she was materialistic just because she had walked out wearing a brand new dress and carrying multiple bags. She debated what she should say first, whether to clarify that an overly enthusiastic uncle had paid for everything, or to explain that she actually intended to return most of it. She wondered why he had rushed her so much, not even allowing her to drop her things off at home before dragging her into the car. His urgency left her even more unsure of what he had planned. When they arrived at the destination, she hesitated before stepping out, uncertain if this was where they were supposed to have dinner. Before she could ask, Shi Yan looked back and casually teased her from behind, asking why she was so short today. She immediately countered that she was not wearing heels and paused in disbelief over the personal attack. She retorted defensively, raising her voice just enough for him to hear that there were plenty of people under 5 feet tall and nothing was wrong with them. She added that it was not as if she received discounted bus fares for being small. Shi Yan brushed off her complaint without much reaction, suggesting that they should head inside. Jung Shu Yi let out a sigh, reminding him that he had agreed to have dinner with her. He responded blandly, asking if that was not what he was currently doing. She insisted that he knew perfectly well what she meant. Shi Yan feigned confusion as he removed his gloves slowly, making her unable to tell whether he was genuinely clueless or merely teasing her on purpose. Seeing him act casually, Jung Shu Yi paused before stepping closer and abruptly clung to his hand. She reasoned silently that if he wanted to play ignorant, she would simply play along even harder. She reminded herself internally that she was not without motives of her own. Once she had achieved her goal, she would decide how to deal with him. She gave his arm a firm pinch, to which he responded with the faintest smile. Once they entered the dining hall, Jung Shu Yi immediately noticed the number of people turning to look at her. She wondered why they were staring so openly and questioned whether they had never seen an attractive woman before. She overheard murmurs spreading through the room, people asking if she was an actress and remarking that they had never seen her before. She overheard murmurs spreading through the room, people asking if she was an actress and remarking that they had never seen her before. Some speculated that she likely did not come from money, yet complimented that her beauty was striking, despite her lack of background. Someone eventually leaned forward and asked who she was. Without hesitation, Jung Shu Yi introduced herself confidently as a reporter from Finance Weekly, giving the name Jung Shu Yi. Whispered commentary followed right after, with several amused voices remarking that director Shi Yan certainly had a playful side, an actress on one side previously, and now a reporter. They added that bringing her to an uncle's formal dinner party must mean he favored her greatly. Shi Yan remained unaffected by their comments and continued as though he had heard nothing. During the meal, under the table, Jung Shu Yi's phone simultaneously buzzed with a text from Xingzhou. Xingzhou asked casually whether she was busy and what she was doing. Jung Shu Yi gritted her teeth silently, mentally cursing him for still contacting her. She thought to herself that he was supposed to remain dead to her and should continue acting as such. She tossed the phone face down, but it buzzed again. Xingzhou insisted that he had something important to tell her and asked once more if she was still busy. Jung Shu Yi grew increasingly irritated, thinking that she should have blocked him instead of only deleting their photos. She typed back a harsh reply that she was currently making love, hoping it would show shut him up immediately and pressed send. As the message went out, she suddenly realized that Xi-yan had been glancing at her throughout the exchange. She panicked slightly, wondering if he had seen her typing and misunderstood. She quickly sent another message correcting it, saying that it was just a cake made with love. Feeling embarrassed, she lowered her phone and tried to act composed, though she felt mentally adrift. One of the women beside her leaned over and asked kindly if she was feeling unwell. Before Jung Shu Yi could respond, Xi-yan answered smoothly that the food was probably not to her taste. Jung Shu Yi tried to cover for herself, claiming that it was simply a bit too warm. A servant stepped in at that moment with a tray, announcing the arrival of the pre-ordered dessert. Someone asked cheerfully which director had been generous enough to treat everyone. Xi-yan spoke up calmly, saying that he had ordered it himself, mentioning casually that a certain someone enjoyed cake. He reached out and wiped a small trace of frosting from the corner of Jung Shu Yi's lips. After dinner, Jung Shu Yi followed Xi-yan back to the car. Once they arrived at their stop, she quickly bowed and thanked him politely, announcing that she would head off first. She silently praised herself for choosing flats that day, feeling confident she could make a swift exit before anything awkward happened. Xi-yan called out to her, but she was too focused on her escape plan to respond. She believed that if she moved fast enough, she could avoid any lingering embarrassment from earlier. However, before she could take another step, Xi-yan caught up from behind and grabbed her wrist. He asked calmly why she was running away. She turned and insisted that she had heard him. He stared at her doubtfully, pointing out that she clearly had heard him, yet she was still trying to flee. He questioned whether she was rushing off to bake a cake again. Jung Shu Yi yanked her hand slightly, thinking internally that he was truly impossible to deal with. He questioned whether she was rushing off to bake a cake again. Jung Shu Yi yanked her hand slightly, thinking internally that he was truly impossible to deal with. She raised her voice, telling him that he was frustrating. Taking a pause, Xi-yan then let go of her hand completely and marched toward the car, claiming that she needed to take her things out. Jung Shu Yi could not believe all this fuss was over something as trivial as a message. Just as she was about to snap again, she heard Xi-yan chuckle softly behind her and realized that he had been teasing her the entire time. Afterwards, on the bed, before she could recover from the embarrassment, her phone buzzed. It was another message from Xingzhou asking if she had been drinking and whether she was all right. Jung Shu Yi stared at the screen in disbelief before cursing quietly. She told him to stop bothering her, questioning if he had gone mad. She sent a long string of harsh replies before tossing her phone into her bag. A few days later, she left for a trip to another city. At the airport, she received Ruoshan, an old classmate. They immediately greeted each other and shared a warm hug. Ruoshan declared that since Jung Shu Yi was in her city, Jung Shu Yi would take responsibility for showing her around. True to her word, she dragged her through a full day of strolling across busy streets, dining at small cafes, and taking pictures in every picturesque corner. Later that evening, they stopped at a bridge overlooking the night skyline. Ruoshan leaned against the railing and brought up the topic everyone seemed to know about. She asked if Jung Shu Yi was really dating the president of Mingyu Bank and whether she was planning to make it official. Jung Shu Yi responded casually that the president was still just a man at the end of the day. Ruoshan nodded in approval, saying she believed in Jung Shu Yi but warned that if things went wrong, she should not blame anyone else. The statement left Jung Shu Yi momentarily speechless. Ruoshan snapped out of the seriousness quickly, commenting that the night view was stunning and suggested they take a picture together. They posed with the city lights behind them, and Ruoshan squealed excitedly after checking the photo, insisting that it turned out perfectly. She announced that she would post it immediately to show off her beautiful friend. Jung Shu Yi looked at the image as Ruoshan typed a caption. For a moment, she considered sending it to Xi-yan. She thought about how she had not messaged him in several days. She wondered whether he had noticed her silence and if he would react at all. Her mind replayed his mocking question from before, asking if she was running off to bake a cake. The memory made her scoff quietly. She decided against sending anything and slipped her phone back into her pocket. Meanwhile, in Jiang City, Xi-yan stood on a yacht while scrolling through his messages. He realized that Jung Shu Yi had been unusually quiet lately. He opened her profile and noticed the newly posted photo with Ruoshan. Zooming in, he stared at Jung Shu Yi for a few seconds before letting out a faint chuckle. He muttered that she was clearly not in the city at the moment. Gunxiang approached from behind and glanced at the screen. He recognized Jung Shu Yi and mentioned that she was the same reporter from a previous meeting. He commented that he had read her latest article and praised her interview with Xi-yan, saying it had been impressively written. Despite her youth, her words carried more sharpness than most of the men in the industry, to which Xi-yan agreed silently. Despite her youth, her words carried more sharpness than most of the men in the industry, to which Xi-yan agreed silently. Gunxiang then asked casually why she had not been around lately. Xi-yan paused with a slight frown before opening the chat window. He typed a brief message to Jung Shu Yi, asking when she would return and adding that Uncle Gunxiang was missing her. The next day, when Jung Shu Yi looked at her phone, she felt surprised to see Gunxiang mentioning that he missed her. She asked if he wanted to see her, questioning the reason behind it, while Xi-yan ignored her words. She sent another message, requesting him not to leave her waiting like that. Xi-yan replied that he was willing to let her interview him and explained that this was why he wished to meet her. Jung Shu Yi thanked him, saying she would come right away. However, she wondered when she had even sent an application to interview Gunxiang. She questioned herself while Xi-yan asked her about it. She decided she had to let it go, thinking nothing good would come from probing further, and she should just go ahead. Afterwards, Jung Shu Yi called Gunxiang's secretary, who informed her that he needed to double-check his schedule, as the week looked slightly tight. Jung Shu Yi replied that it was fine for her, mentioning they could always shift it to a time more convenient for him. The secretary asked if she would be available the following week. Jung Shu Yi asked if she would be available the following week. Jung Shu Yi agreed, saying that worked well and promised she could return that night to start her preparations. The secretary then asked if she was currently overseas, to which Jung Shu Yi admitted she was on a business trip to Wu City. Suddenly, Gunxiang spoke on the call, reassuring her that there was no need to worry since there was no rush. He mentioned that he had visited the place place once, saying it was beautiful and suggested she stay longer to enjoy it for a few more days, as he only had time next weekend anyway. Jung Shu Yi agreed, thanking him politely. She felt surprised to realize Gun Xiang was so easygoing, thinking she had been ready to change her ticket, yet everything was delayed due to heavy snowfall. In the end, this worked out well for her, as she could enjoy the next few days instead. After spending time with Roshan in the snow, Jung Shu Yi felt more relaxed. There was no work, no Shu Yuling, no Xingzhou, and not even the difficult Xiyan around to trouble her. It gave her a sense of comfort. Meanwhile, Xiyan frowned as he sipped his coffee, going through Jung Shu Yi's profile and noticing all her activities. He thought she was still playing around. He checked the messages, seeing the one where Jung Shu Yi had said she would come right away, yet it had been 3 days since. Frustrated, he tossed his phone onto the table. At that moment, the bell rang, and it was Jung Shu Yi. She sent a message saying she was back, to which he replied by asking if she returned earlier than expected. Jung Shu Yi felt it sounded like he was trying to win something, so she questioned him about why it seemed sarcastic. Xiyan remarked that it was only in her head, while Jung Shu Yi messaged back saying it appeared weirdly cute, making Xiyan nearly spill his tea. Jung Shu Yi, however, reminded herself that she had no time to worry about Xiyan, as her utmost priority was preparing for Gun Xiang's interview. On the day of the interview, Gun Xiang's secretary received Jung Shu Yi. She bowed respectfully, thinking that thanks to Gun Xiang's generosity, she had been able to enjoy the snow, but now she had to be even more careful in her approach. This interview, she believed, had to meet the standard of the front-page opportunity the editor-in-chief had entrusted to her. She made sure to check her makeup once more while glancing at Xiyan, who was waiting nearby. She called out to him and ran towards him, greeting him with a cheerful remark about it being a long time since they had seen each other. However, Xiyan showed no reaction. Jung Shu Yi wondered why he was there, thinking that her purpose was to interview Gun Xiang, not deal with him. She chuckled lightly, moved closer, and asked if he had been waiting for her. After entering the mansion, Gun Xiang invited Jung Shu Yi to take a seat and mentioned that he had seen the article she had recently written. He remarked that it was well crafted and that her ideas showed considerable innovation. Apart from Shi Yan, he rarely spent time with any of the writers, which was why he had asked Shi Yan to invite her for a discussion. Jung Shu Yi expressed her gratitude, stating that it would be her honor to have the opportunity. Gun Xiang then offered her some tea, describing it as his personal treasure and noting that he rarely allowed anyone else to taste it. Jung Shu Yi protested lightly, admitting that she was not skilled with tea and feared it might be wasted on her. Shi Yan encouraged her to drink it, assuring her that she would enjoy it, like melted snow. Jung Shu Yi, however, wondered inwardly if it might be melted snow. Gun Xiang glanced at her and asked if she did not like snow, which she found unusual since it seemed a bit gloomy. For a moment, she wondered if he was jealous of the snow. Nevertheless, she took a sip and confirmed that it was delicious, remarking that the taste of snow was particularly pleasant. Shi Yan then excused himself, saying he would leave them to their conversation and stepped out. Afterwards, Shi Yan boarded the yacht. Just as he was about to sleep, his phone started buzzing incessantly, causing him considerable annoyance. Messages from the credit card company indicated that a refund had been received on their card. Irritated, he sent a message to Qin Shiyue, requesting that his phone number be disconnected from her accounts to avoid receiving further notifications about her purchases and returns. Meanwhile, Jung Shu Yi conducted her interview with Gun Xiang. At one point, he admitted feeling hungry after all the talking and asked whether the dishes before them were not to her taste. Jung Shu Yi denied this, assuring him that they were quite delicious. She also felt inwardly pleased that she had been able to stay back after interviewing Uncle Gun Xiang. Gun Xiang inquired about her age, to which Jung Shu Yi replied that she was 25. He commented that this age was well suited for Shi Yan, causing her to flinch slightly. She reflected that Uncle Gun Xiang had probably misunderstood the nature of her relationship with Shi Yan during their previous encounter at the house, considering that Shi Yan had likely not corrected the misunderstanding to avoid an awkward situation. She felt quietly delighted at this and thought she might take the opportunity to tease him later. Gun Xiang went on to say that he had met countless journalists over the years. Many of his old friends had eventually changed careers, especially in a time when paper-based media was in decline. He remarked that journalists no longer served as society's Zhang Shu Yi voice, and acknowledged the difficulty women faced in sustaining a career in this field. Jung Shu Yi responded that their magazine employed a considerable number of women, some of whom were especially attractive. Gun Xiang agreed that appearance could be an advantage, noting that having appealing interviewees was desirable. Jung Shu Yi added that CEO Shi Yan particularly preferred having attractive journalists around, which caused him to flinch slightly. He asked her to clarify, prompting Jung Shu Yi to mention the intern who had accompanied her to the press conference. She noted that he had been staring at the intern for an extended period. Gun Xiang asked if this had truly occurred, and Shi Yan denied it. Jung Shu Yi, however, insisted that it had, recounting how Shi Yan had inquired about the intern's whereabouts after she had left due to feeling unwell. She tapped Shi Yan's leg under the table as a playful gesture, prompting him to storm out, claiming he was merely teasing her. Jung Shu Yi questioned whether this was truly the case. Gun Xiang asked what might convince her of it, and Jung Shu Yi suggested offering some prawns. Shi Yan agreed, handing them to her with appeal intact. She teased him for not peeling them, causing mild irritation, and ultimately decided to peel them herself, serving them back to Shi Yan, who accepted them quietly, reflecting that she needed to keep him appeased. Later, as they boarded the yacht, Jung Shu Yi recalled that Mr. Gun Xiang had pulled her aside once more to comment on the article she had published. It became evident to her that he held her work in high regard, considering her the best among her peers. She inwardly reflected that his praise surpassed that of 10 vice presidents or perhaps even 100. Shi Yan instructed her to get on the boat, and she thanked him, appreciating the opportunity to meet Mr. Gun Xiang in person. She resolved to dedicate her utmost effort to producing an excellent article. Shi Yan remarked that although Gun Xiang had mentioned the decline of paper-based media, she seemed to hold a genuine appreciation for journalism. Jung Shu Yi agreed, reflecting that there was no other field where she could better apply her talents, and considered herself a journalism beauty. As she stepped onto the yacht, she decided to sing a poem as a gesture of thanks. Her voice and presence captivated Shi-yeon, though he averted his gaze out of embarrassment while she laughed lightly at the effect. Meanwhile, Shi-yeon reflected upon the message from Chin-shia, stating that she had bought some dresses with Jung Shu Yi and asking whether Jung Shu Yi had returned them all. This prompted him to wonder whether her actions were not motivated by money or by some other intention. Yet if her motives were not driven by fame, it suggested genuine affection as she bade farewell with a smile. Shi-yeon felt his heart stir at the thought. After finishing the interview with Gun Xiang, Jung Shu Yi began the meticulous task of drafting her article. As she progressed, she felt a sense of accomplishment once the first draft was complete. She booked the cab, only to see a message indicating that she was number 1. She posted a picture online asking if someone could send a bed over to the company, restricting the view so that only Shi-yeon could see it. She hoped he would notice her update. However, after 30 minutes without a response, she muttered under her breath, complaining about Shi-yeon and thinking he was a little piece of trouble, all while moving toward her turn in the queue. As she waited, a familiar figure approached from behind. He asked if she had just finished work, to which Jung Shu Yi confirmed she was working late. She recognized him immediately. It was the young man from the cafe. He explained that there were few customers at this hour, so he had stepped out for some fresh air and happened to see her. Dashing back to the cafe briefly, he returned with a small packet, reminding her of the egg tart she had wanted that afternoon. Since there had been none available earlier, he had asked the pastry chef to prepare some in case she returned. He had saved them for her and insisted she take them, as he did not eat sweets and they would otherwise go to waste. From behind, Shi-yeon interrupted, asking if Jung Shu Yi had paid for them. Turning around, she saw Shi-yeon, who took the money from his wallet and handed it to the young man. He then gestured for her to follow him. Jung Shu Yi complied, slightly surprised, as she had thought he would not come, leaving the boy looking somewhat heartbroken. Once inside the car, Shi-yeon remarked that Jung Shu Yi was quite bold to accept food from a stranger. Jung Shu Yi, unconvinced, pointed out that she had met the young man more times than Shi-yeon had. Shi-yeon teased her lightly, prompting her to question him. He then asked if he was her driver and why she was not sitting in the front seat, which made Jung Shu Yi glance at him with mild curiosity. From the top of the building, Shu Yuling observed the interaction between Shi-yeon and Jung Shu Yi. She was taken aback, muttering that it finally explained how Jung Shu Yi had managed to dominate the feature articles. She had connections and it was Shi-yeon. Meanwhile, Jung Shu Yi felt a shiver run through her body as she imagined someone speaking behind her. She glanced at Shi-yeon, who inquired what she wanted to eat, offering to take her wherever she wished. They arrived at a private noodle house, where Jung Shu Yi complimented the dish, declaring it delicious and thanking Shi-yeon for taking her there. She continued eating while noting that Shi-yeon had not ordered anything, explaining that the shop did not offer takeout. Shi-yeon denied eating, but Jung Shu Yi's attention shifted as she noticed Xingzhou entering with his friends. Feeling a sudden loss of appetite, she excused herself, coughing lightly and claiming she needed to use the bathroom. Once inside, she hurried off, thinking she needed a moment to recover from the shock. Meanwhile, Xingzhou's friend prodded him, asking why he had suddenly broken up with Jung Shu Yi, despite being in a relationship for so many years. Xingzhou explained that their personalities did not match, though his friend seemed incredulous. He had thought they suited each other, describing Xingzhou as normal and easygoing. They had even been discussing potential wedding plans, and it seemed a shame to him that the relationship had ended. Xingzhou felt a chill as he realized Shi-yeon was staring at him. Perceiving the intense gaze as a literal death stare, the sight unsettled him, and he felt the full weight of Shi-yeon's presence, recognizing the sheer intimidation in his look. As Shi-yeon turned his head, Xingzhou felt a sense of unease. He thought he was probably reading too much into the situation, and assumed that Shi-yeon must be observing someone behind him. Xingzhou's friend continued asking about the breakup, inquiring who had initiated it. Xingzhou replied that Jung Shu Yi had ended it. His friend nodded, remarking that it made sense. After all, Jung Shu Yi was interacting with people on a different level now. It was natural for her to set her sights higher, meeting CEOs and CFOs. She was unlikely to take notice of a small bank clerk while ascending the corporate ladder. The friend laughed, adding that they should let bygones be bygones. He suggested that Xingzhou would not find someone new without first letting go of the past. When he asked if Xingzhou had a string of admirers waiting, he noted that Jung Shu Yi did not seem like the kind of woman one could live a peaceful life with. They laughed together, deciding to return to their games and let the conversation drop. Jung Shu Yi appeared soon after, prompting Shi-yeon to question silently whether she had been lingering in the bathroom. When she apologized for keeping him waiting, he paused, noticing a hint of sadness in her expression. He asked her to lift her head. Jung Shu Yi complied, and Shi-yeon complimented her, remarking that she looked beautiful, which made her scoff lightly. He continued, commenting on her large eyes and yet poor taste in men, which caused Jung Shu Yi to groan, thinking that she had encountered a fool. Her noodles were ruined, and now Shi-yeon was mocking her as well. Feeling exasperated, Jung Shu Yi declared that she had lost her appetite and requested that he take her home. As they entered the car, she pondered whether she was imagining things or if Shi-yeon was simply in a bad mood. Once home, she applied a face mask, reflecting on the fact that she had not eaten after working overtime and felt on the verge of collapse. Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone rang, and she cried out in delight upon seeing that her delivery had arrived, but it was from 9 Flowers. The delivery man confirmed that she had a package from 9 Flowers. Jung Shu Yi questioned aloud, as she had not placed an order. The package contained the deluxe version of noodles with added crab and soup. She recalled that 9 Flowers did not typically offer deliveries, leaving her to wonder how Shi-yeon had managed it. She felt touched by the gesture, thinking that little Shi-yeon from the Shi family was indeed thoughtful. While Jung Shu Yi enjoyed her meal at home, she sent a message to Shi-yeon, thanking him for the delivery. Shi-yeon smiled upon reading it and messaged back, pointing the spring onions. Jung Shu Yi replied that she disliked onions, prompting Shi-yeon to remark that she she was a picky eater. She sent a voicemail, noting that her parents had never cared for such details. Yet here Shi-yeon was, doting on her. Jung Shu Yi followed up with another message, asking whether he had treated his previous girlfriend the same way. Shi-yeon recalled the earlier conversation regarding Xingzhou at the restaurant, and sent a message asking why her ex-boyfriend had never considered such things. Setting down his drink, Jung Shu Yi denied it, questioning why he would concern himself with such a trivial matter. She added that if he were her boyfriend, she thought he would care. Shi-yeon blushed slightly at her words, a smile tugging at his lips, as he read the message again. In the office, the editor-in-chief noted that not much had occurred over the past year, and with the new year approaching, the focus had shifted to upcoming priorities. The most urgent task at the moment was the follow-up reporting on Mingyu Holdings' IPO. Mingyu Holdings, a financial tech subsidiary owned by Mingyu Bank, had garnered substantial attention. Leading appraisal companies had all assigned ratings, and the industry's eyes were firmly fixed on its initial public offering of shares. No journalist would want to miss such an opportunity, especially since their representative was Shi-yeon, whose presence alone elevated the event's significance. Suddenly, the editor-in-chief called out for Xu Yuling, stating that she would be responsible for covering the event. Jung Shu Yi found this understandable. Despite her own accomplishments, Xu Yuling remained a core figure in the company. The editor-in-chief could not disregard her contributions, particularly as Xu Yuling had previously led a highlight article. Yet to Jung Shu Yi's astonishment, Xu Yuling stated that she was not very familiar with Mingyu Holdings and suggested that Jung Shu Yi might be better suited to cover the event. Jung Shu Yi could hardly believe her ears, wondering if Xu Yuling had lost her mind. Such an opportunity was rare, and Jung Shu Yi felt a mix of disbelief and gratitude for the unexpected gesture. After the meeting, Jung Shu Yi found herself staring at Xu Yuling, questioning her reasoning. How could someone so capable voluntarily relinquish such a chance? Nevertheless, she decided it was best to comply with Xu Yuling's suggestion. She quickly messaged Shi-yeon, informing him that she would be covering the Mingyu Holdings event the day after tomorrow, and asking whether he would be attending. Shi-yeon's response was negative, leaving Jung Shu Yi slightly disappointed. She had hoped he might appear at such a significant subsidiary event, given its relevance to him. 2 days later, Jung Shu Yi arrived at Mingyu Holdings. The receptionist called out that a journalist from Finance Weekly had an appointment with Mr. Chu, and inquired if he could accommodate her, as she had already arrived. Yu, overhearing the conversation, was taken aback and questioned whether it could truly be Jung Shu Yi. The receptionist confirmed her identity, prompting Yu to be momentarily speechless. The receptionist offered Jung Shu Yi coffee while she waited, explaining that Mr. Chu's schedule was filled with meetings, and that she might have to wait for some time. Jung Shu Yi gratefully accepted, thinking that Mingyu's coffee was quite enjoyable, and that a brief wait with a good cup of coffee was manageable. An hour later, the receptionist apologized, explaining that the afternoon meeting was running longer than expected. 2 hours passed and she returned once more, expressing regret that a last-minute meeting had extended Mr. Chu's schedule. As dusk approached, Jung Shu Yi, surrounded by numerous cups of coffee, was completely drained. She snapped, thinking that the sun was setting and Mr. Chu had yet to appear. She photographed the array of coffees and messaged Shi-yeon, joking that his company's coffee was effective. After 5 cups, she was on the verge of being overwhelmed. Shi-yeon replied, questioning the comment, to which Jung Shu Yi responded teasingly, asking if the company's motto was to make people wait until they grew old. She clarified that she was not blaming him but was merely bored. Moments later, the receptionist informed, apologizing again, and stating that Mr. Chu had an urgent matter arise and had left about half an hour ago, but had quickly returned upon learning of the interview with Jung Shu Yi. Jung Shu Yi thanked her drowsily, acknowledging the receptionist's effort despite her exhaustion. Shortly after, a lady entered and asked for Jung Shu Yi. The lady apologized for the long wait and explained that Mr. Chu would see her shortly and asked her to follow. Surprised, Jung Shu Yi inquired whether Mr. Chu had not left, and the lady confirmed but noted that he had rushed back immediately upon hearing that Jung Shu Yi was present for the interview. During the meeting, Jung Shu Yi stated that their magazine would closely follow Mingyu Holdings' IPO and that they might need his cooperation in the near future. Mr. Chu acknowledged her statement and apologized for the delay caused by the secretary's oversight. Jung Shu Yi expressed concern that he might have inconvenienced himself by returning, offering to reschedule if necessary. Mr. Chu denied the need, emphasizing that the appointment had been set for that day and that he could not let her leave empty-handed. He instructed his secretary to arrange a taxi for Jung Shu Yi's trip back, which she confirmed without hesitation. As Jung Shu Yi was being escorted out, Yu stumbled upon her. Yu appeared surprised, asking if Mr. Chu had requested to see her. Jung Shu Yi realized that the woman was an employee at the company. Mr. Chu ordered Yu to enter, while the lady continued escorting Jung Shu Yi. Yu called out to Mr. Chu, urging him to listen, but Jung Shu Yi, observing the interaction, considered that it might be fashionable for the wealthy to mingle casually with ordinary people. She quietly dismissed the thought, reflecting that Shi-yeon had been rather harsh to his niece. Meanwhile, Shi-yeon received a call from Mr. Chu, who apologized for the secretary's mistake and explained that appropriate measures had been taken. He assured Shi-yeon that stricter management protocols would prevent a recurrence. Shi-yeon asked if the interview had concluded, and upon confirmation, he noted that a taxi had been arranged for Jung Shu Yi. Considering that he had come to the location, Mr. Chu briefly wondered if it would be worthwhile to arrange a meeting with Mr. Gun Xiang and Mr. Shi as well, but he decided against it. Shi-yeon called for the secretary to bring the car around, stating that he would arrive in 10 minutes. As he opened the door, he unexpectedly encountered Jung Shu Yi. Jung Shu Yi remarked on the coincidence, expressing that she had not expected to see him there. Shi-yeon agreed, commenting that it was indeed coincidental, as it seemed someone had just happened to stumble into the building and knock on the very door where he had been standing. Jung Shu Yi affirmed that she had run into Yu in the elevator, so she thought it appropriate to come and thank him, for which Shi Yan questioned what she meant. Jung Shu Yi explained the matter with Mr. Chu, mentioning that if he had not helped, she would have come all this way for nothing. Yan, however, tried to walk away, attempting to change his mind. Jung Shu Yi asked if he was heading home, noting that it was late and he had worked hard, and inquired if he was hungry or wished to grab a meal. Yan suddenly stopped, turning to Jung Shu Yi to ask what she wanted to eat. Jung Shu Yi insisted that it was her treat, and that they should go together. Upon reaching the restaurant, Jung Shu Yi appeared excited, remarking that she had told him it was nearby since it was right there. As they entered, she expressed concern that it was already so late and she did not even know if they would be able to get a table, hurrying forward slightly. Suddenly, a car buzzed past, and Yan instinctively moved to protect her, guiding her to the side. Jung Shu Yi felt that he was unusually close and called his name softly. Noticing how pleasant he smelled, Yan scolded her gently, suggesting she should watch where she was going and asking if she was being chased. He then took her hand carefully to help her cross the road, while Jung Shu Yi apologized repeatedly, flustered by the closeness. Once they were seated at their table, Jung Shu Yi considered the dishes and asked Yan if he wished to try something, but he declined. She suggested goose, yet he refused again, prompting her to question what he actually desired. Yan stated that he would eat whatever she chose. Jung Shu Yi observed that he seemed the type to say anything but still cared, for which Yan asked what she meant. Jung Shu Yi explained that she planned to prepare her secret sauce for her boss, which would guarantee satisfaction. She inquired whether he wanted coriander, to which Yan declined. Just then, a servant arrived, announcing that the Jade Emperor's special spicy hot pot was ready. Seeing Jung Shu Yi's expression, Yan's eyes seemed to steam with memory, recalling the earlier moment when he had held her hand and noticed her lipstick mark on his shirt. Jung Shu Yi then called out that his dish was ready, as he affirmed. Just in, Yan received a sudden call from Qin Shiyue. She screamed that she had been scammed while parked on the side of the road, insisting that she had not touched the man who lay down without moving, and that he had called the police despite her inaction. Jung Shu Yi worriedly asked him if she was physically fine, and Yan remarked on how lively she sounded, noting that the other person was alright as well. Jung Shu Yi questioned why he had not gone to check on her, suggesting that even if it were blackmail, she was still young and inexperienced, and the situation could escalate. She offered to treat him next time. Yan sought clarification, and Jung Shu Yi reflected that she was accustomed to waiting for people, just as she had during her interview with Mr. Wada Chu. She recalled that the first time she interviewed him, when he had criticized her manuscript, she had waited patiently, realizing she had always waited for him. Many things she wished to express required patience, yet somehow she managed to release the thoughts she had bottled up whenever she was with him. Although she appeared to shamelessly take advantage of the trust she had built with him, she was willing to wait. She told Yan that she would wait for him as long as necessary, admitting that she could not help carelessly sharing her trivial thoughts. Smiling softly, Jung Shu Yi reflected that the evening had been a bit much, yet she would consider it a reward for her hard work. Even mental hospitals had single rooms, and there was no reason she could not finish a whole hot pot alone. Deep within, she recognized a persistent voice in her heart urging her onward, despite the exhaustion. Yan messaged Qin Shiyu, noting that the secretary was almost there and instructing her to settle matters. He reminded her that he would not leave, as he could not bear to be away from Jung Shu Yi. Jung Shu Yi noticed Yan's expression, and became flustered as he remarked that he would not be able to bear seeing her in a mental hospital, speaking with a seriousness that left her momentarily speechless. While Jung Shu Yi struggled to process his words, he appeared to enjoy the effect they had on her, noting that she acted with such skill that she could easily win an Oscar, and continued to tease her subtly afterward. The next day at the office, Jung Shu Yi questioned Qin Shiyue about her whereabouts the previous night, noting that it was the 8th time she had arrived late that month, and asked if she intended to risk failing the internship. Qin Shiyue, frustrated, raised her voice, explaining that she had been involved in a car accident the previous evening. The police had arrived, and the matter had not been resolved until after 2 in the morning. Jung Shu Yi reacted with concern, asking if Qin Shiyue had been hurt, and insisting that she should have informed her and requested leave in advance. She inquired about her parents' involvement, to which Qin Shiyue replied that they were overseas, and her uncle had not checked on her. Jung Shu Yi expressed irritation, considering it unacceptable that a young girl had to handle such a serious situation alone, and questioned what kind of uncle would leave her in that position. Qin Shiyue suggested that her uncle might be involved with someone, possibly a woman with questionable intentions. Jung Shu Yi reacted with disbelief, asking if anything could be more important than his own niece, recalling how, in history, rulers had been condemned for allowing seduction to cloud their judgment. At that moment, Jung Shu Yi received a message from Yan. She attended to it immediately, explaining that she had something to handle, and left in a hurry. Yan's message indicated that he was at the airport. Curious, she asked where he was going. He replied that he was traveling to the United States. She asked when he would return, and he questioned the reason for her inquiry. Jung Shu Yi responded that she would miss him, explaining that was the reason. As she continued messaging him, noting the presence of stars are everywhere, Yan confirmed that he would be leaving. She responded in a way meant to make him smile as he departed for the United States. A few days later, in the United States, Yan attended a charity gala. Several executives called for the director, introducing themselves and providing their addresses. Some mentioned prior invitations from their companies, while others referenced having played golf with their fathers. Yan eventually stepped outside to take a breath of fresh air, reflecting on how he had never noticed the number of stars in the sky. His thoughts turned to Jung Shu Yi, imagining her beneath the same sky. He considered that, rather than mingling with other attendees, he would prefer to return and watch her performance, reasoning that she was far more captivating than any star at the event. Yan then instructed his secretary to prepare for their departure the following day. Meanwhile, Jung Shu Yi spent time with Ruoshan. She asked how long Ruoshan would stay for the new year, and Ruoshan replied that she would probably remain for 3 days, suggesting they could discuss plans further after enjoying the district. Jung Shu Yi found the atmosphere pleasant, yet that her attention was drawn to Xian, who appeared to be waiting nearby. Ruoshan whispered that the area was beautiful and the people attractive, questioning why the director Jung Shu Yi had been pursuing was present. Jung Shu Yi was puzzled, recalling that he should still be in the United States. She approached him to inquire about his unexpected arrival. Xian handed her a gift, explaining that he had come across it and thought of her. Jung Shu Yi recognized the item as a pair of heels and noted that they were intended for her. She recalled having broken a pair of heels at a previous concert and smiled quietly, appreciating that Xian had remembered. Xian inquired why she had not mentioned her friend's visit as he prepared to leave. Ruoshan, examining the heels, expressed surprise at the number of diamonds on them, jokingly referring to them as a galaxy shoe, and noting the director's apparent purchasing power. Jung Shu Yi, reflecting on Xian's early return, concluded that it must have been because of her. She sent him a small gesture of affection, a flying kiss, prompting Ruoshan to caution her against jumping to conclusions. Xian, observing the scene in a mirror, saw Jung Shu Yi smiling and felt a quiet satisfaction, considering his visit worthwhile. That night, Ruoshan commented that she could not believe Jung Shu Yi wanted to spend New Year's Eve downtown, noting how crowded the streets were with people. Jung Shu Yi replied that perhaps they might as well have stayed home, but Ruoshan insisted that it had been a long time since they had hung out and expressed that she was genuinely glad they could spend the evening together. Ruoshan agreed, and Jung Shu Yi let out a quiet giggle. Ruoshan noticed her friend's laughter and asked what had caused it, wondering if it was because of the director's attention earlier. She tried to clarify, explaining that before Xian had left, he had asked why she had not told him earlier about her friend visiting for the New Year. Ruoshan's amusement increased as she suggested that there was still hope. Perhaps he had wanted to spend New Year's Eve with her, and she had inadvertently disrupted his plans. Jung Shu Yi admitted that she thought he might have wanted to spend it with her as well. Ruoshan advised her to stay focused and maintain control of the situation. She suggested that by appearing less available, Jung Shu Yi could create a sense of anticipation for him. Jung Shu Yi noted that she had indeed not reached out to him in some time, her last message sent before he departed for America. Ruoshan encouraged her not to initiate contact before he did, and to post certain things on social media to capture his attention, which Jung Shu Yi agreed to try. Later, Jung Shu Yi posted a photo with Ruoshan at a popular spot, highlighting the night as a significant event. However, 3 hours passed without a response from Xian. Frustrated, Jung Shu Yi threw her phone aside, realizing that the attempt to draw his attention was not working. Outside, fireworks began to light up the sky, signaling the approaching countdown. Jung Shu Yi observed them and noted that the new year was about to begin. As the countdown concluded and the celebrations commenced, Jung Shu Yi's phone buzzed with New Year messages from various contacts. Among them was a message from Xian, which surprised her. She teased him briefly, wondering if it was part of a mass text. After waiting for a reply and receiving none, she grew slightly annoyed, deciding that it might now be her turn to respond. She sent a message suggesting that it was an honor to be included in his New Year greetings, noting that even a brief contact meant more to her than any other messages. Xian replied, asking if she was bored or otherwise engaged, questioning why she was messaging him so much when she was supposed to be with a friend. Ruoshan interpreted the message as implying that she had taken Jung Shu Yi's attention away from him. She advised Jung Shu Yi to end the conversation carefully, ensuring that he would not perceive her as easily approachable. Jung Shu Yi asked for guidance on how to conclude it. Ruoshan suggested finding an excuse to go to sleep, which Jung Shu Yi agreed to attempt. Jung Shu Yi considered the timing of her message, reflecting on the fact that it was just past midnight on New Year's Day, and that everyone was technically an adult, though she acknowledged that the idea might not carry much weight. Ruoshan, preparing to take a shower, reminded her that it did not matter whether Xian believed it or not, and promised they could continue discussing the situation afterward. Jung Shu Yi agreed and decided to compose a simple message indicating that it was time to sleep. As she attempted to put her phone away, Jung Shu Yi suddenly realized the phrasing of her message might be misinterpreted. She quickly returned to her phone to clarify, apologizing and asking Xian not to misunderstand. She immediately recognized that it might be too late to delete the message. Xian responded quickly, asking for clarification, which caused Jung Shu Yi to grow nervous, regretting that she had complicated the situation unnecessarily. He prompted her to explain without delay, which she interpreted as deliberate pressure on his part. Jung Shu Yi groaned inwardly, concluding that Xian must be acting this way intentionally. He sent another message stating that he would go to sleep if she did not clarify soon. Jung Shu Yi hurriedly explained that her previous message had been nothing significant, that she had meant no harm, and simply wanted to prevent any misunderstanding. She concluded by mentioning that she would be going to bed. Meanwhile, Xian, after reading her explanation, let out a quiet laugh as he prepared to take a shower, while his ears were bright red. The next day, Ruoshan remarked on Jung Shu Yi's stiffness, questioning why she was not texting Xian again. Jung Shu Yi denied it, explaining that she had been sending New Year's greetings to other friends. Ruoshan approved, noting that it was better for Jung Shu Yi to focus on enjoying the holidays and to temporarily set aside thoughts of Xian. Jung Shu Yi agreed, and Ruoshan's expression suggested she found satisfaction in seeing her friend momentarily relaxed. Suddenly, Jung Shu Yi received a message from Gun Sheng. She felt a quiet sense of delight as he asked whether she was on vacation. Jung Shu Yi confirmed that they would be able to take some holidays this year. They exchanged messages in which he reminded her to rest well, invited her to visit his ranch if she had time, and suggested she exercise regularly, explaining that good health would be valuable throughout her life. Jung Shu Yi responded that she would make the effort to visit and thanked him for the invitation. Gun Sheng reassured her not to rush, noting that the ranch had full-time staff to assist her whenever she decided to drop by. Ruoshan, curious, asked questions about the ranch. Jung Shu Yi explained that Gun Sheng was the person their finance professor often mentioned, and that the ranch belonged to him. Ruoshan confirmed she was referring to Gun Sheng and expressed that she had never ridden a horse before. She asked whether they could arrange to do so. Jung Shu Yi hesitated, noting that Gun Sheng might have only been polite when he mentioned the ranch, but Ruoshan Yan persisted. Ultimately, Jung Shu Yi decided to message Gun Shang, asking whether they could visit his ranch. 2 days later, Yan received attention from a colleague who questioned why he had returned from America so soon, given that he had been expected to spend New Year's there. Yan paid little attention, replying simply that he had felt like coming back. Guanji, Gun Shang's son, appeared shortly after and invited the others to examine what he had brought with him. The group reacted with surprise at the jade he presented. Guanji remarked on the unpredictability of the stock market, explaining that he felt reassured by tangible assets and that she had recently commissioned some jade carvings after a trip up the mountain. One person asked Yan to select a piece, but another asked aloud why his attention seemed elsewhere, noting that he had been unusually reserved that day. Yan, considering the matter, asked whether they truly believed in the significance of the jade. A colleague replied that, at least, it provided a sense of peace in their work, which was often emotionally demanding. Each piece of jade had a different phrase engraved on the back, and one of them encouraged Yan to read his. He observed the engraving, which read, "All will be as he desired." He squinted at it, thinking about the wish it represented, and noting that if only it were so simple, everything would follow his intentions. He fidgeted slightly as his attention shifted, noticing Jung Shu Yi walking at a distance. One of Yan's friends asked about the girls, wondering why they had not been forewarned about their visit. Guanji admitted he had not expected them either, but remarked that they were attractive. Yan, surprised to see Jung Shu Yi, thought again of the engraving, "All will be as he desired," and acknowledged that it seemed to have come true. He prepared to rise, but Guanji quickly approached the group, greeting the women and prompting Yan to sit back down with quiet disappointment. Guanji asked the girls their names. Jung Shu Yi, feeling slightly nervous, introduced herself as a representative from Finance Weekly, mentioning that she had come to greet Uncle Gun Shang and had not anticipated that the others would be present. She reassured them that they would not disturb anyone. Guanji assured her that there was no problem, noting that the ranch was large enough to accommodate everyone. Jung Shu Yi observed that Roshan was encouraging her to remain composed, while Yan, as always, maintained a calm demeanor, appearing unaffected despite the subtle tension. One of Yan's friends commented on Guanji's consistent behavior, noting that he would approach attractive women without hesitation and seemed to maintain high standards in the company he kept. Yan, observing quietly, questioned why Guanji remained unmarried. He clenched the jade in his hand, saying that perhaps the women were simply beyond his reach. Later, at the stables, Guanji noted the pleasant weather and asked whether Jung Shu Yi and Roshan would like to try horse riding. Roshan expressed excitement, and Guanji confirmed that he had come specifically to spend time with them and could provide guidance since he was free. Jung Shu Yi thanked him, expressing her willingness to follow his instructions. Observing her smile, Guanji felt momentarily unsettled by his own reaction and acknowledged quietly that it was a pleasure for him to assist. Suddenly, Yan approached, positioning himself between Guanji and the girls. He asked if Guanji was bored or if he had some other reason for lingering. The presence of Yan introduced a subtle tension, and Guanji paused, recognizing the quiet authority he carried. Confronting Guanji, Yan questioned why he had called everyone together so urgently, asking if he had nothing better to do and why they were expected to ride horses. He then turned toward Jung Shu Yi, asking what she was doing out there. Jung Shu Yi observed that he seemed unlike his usual self around her, wondering if he had somehow overexerted himself, so tense as he appeared today. Recalling Roshan's advice that one should never let men gain the upper hand, Jung Shu Yi replied sharply that he did not own the ranch and questioned why she could not be outside. Guanji reassured her, stating that she was welcome at the ranch at any time. He called out to Yan, suggesting that he should try being kinder to attractive women, warning that continued behavior like this would leave him alone. Jung Shu Yi started to say that he was always like this, but received a sharp glare from Yan, prompting her to hide behind Guanji. Guanji asked Yan to stop intimidating her. Yan remarked that just one word from him could have her removed, a comment that made Jung Shu Yi frown. Guanji tried to smooth the situation, stating that since Jung Shu Yi was Yan's friend, and Yan was his friend as well, she should treat the ranch as her own and enjoy herself. Yan asked when they had become that close, and Guanji inwardly noted his surprise. Jung Shu Yi admitted that they were not close, barely knowing each other, and expressed a sense of guilt for imposing. Guanji assured her that there was nothing to feel guilty about, reminding her that his father had instructed him to look after them. He offered to fetch riding gear for both Jung Shu Yi and Roshan. Roshan affirmed that they would be in Guanji's care while he escorted them. Guanji observed silently, questioning why Yan and Jung Shu Yi's relationship seemed so strained if there was no particular conflict between them. At the changing room, Jung Shu Yi struggled with the gear, noting that despite previous experience, the belt was still difficult to fasten. She blamed Yan for her distraction, wondering why he had confronted her so abruptly and finding it difficult to think clearly. Yan appeared behind her, adding to her embarrassment, and assisted her in fastening the belt. Jung Shu Yi insisted that she was fine and thanked him, attempting to push him away. Yan held both her hands and reminded her of a comment she had made a few days prior about wanting to be closer to him, contrasting it with her current statement that they barely knew each other. Jung Shu Yi blushed and called out to him in response. From the hallway, Guanji asked Yan if he had seen Jung Shu Yi. Yan smiled, denying it and asking what the rush was. Frustrated, Jung Shu Yi lightly pinched him, prompting Roshan to step in. She called out to Guanji, stating that she was ready and asking for his assistance in selecting a gentle horse. Guanji agreed, noting that it would be her first time. He stepped back, deciding not to intervene further with Jung Shu Yi, assuming that Yan's contentious relationship with her meant he was unlikely to be concerned about her comfort. Jung Shu Yi felt relief at his departure. Yan called for Jung Shu Yi to respond to him, leaving her with an odd sense of discomfort. She wondered why the interaction felt unusually intimate, almost as though they were engaged in a private exchange that went beyond ordinary conversation. His insistence on her response and the way he observed her her created an unsettling tension. Jung Shu Yi questioned why the situation felt as if they were conducting a private affair. Jung Shu Yi pouted, hoping to make Xiyan chuckle. She huffed softly, noticing the way he flinched, and wondered whether he was genuinely annoyed. She thought perhaps he should stop teasing her. Then, impulsively, she asked whether he would let her sleep with him, surprising him. She added that if they did, he would need to take responsibility. Xiyan froze, caught off guard by the comment. As the tension built, Xiyan instinctively brought Jung Shu Yi closer. His hand brushed against her face, touching her hair and lips for a brief moment, and he adjusted her clothing. Jung Shu Yi gasped, remarking that his watch felt cold against her skin. Xiyan quickly regained control, setting her down and lightly pinching her cheek, noting that her face felt warm. As he stepped away, Jung Shu Yi thought the cold metal of his watch had made her face itch. While Xiyan inwardly chastised himself for almost losing control over such a small provocation, his ears tinged with embarrassment. Jung Shu Yi reflected that she had overextended herself with her teasing and wondered why she had said something so inappropriate. After she finished dressing and moved to the ground, Jung Shu Yi realized how long it had taken her to get ready because Xiyan had repeatedly interfered. She muttered about his temper but noticed that he smelled good as she glanced at him near the horse. Then she remembered their previous experience riding together and decided she needed to leave quickly. She approached Roshan and Guanji but froze as Xiyan called out for her from behind, instructing her to get onto the horse. She stumbled to her knees, considering whether she could rise on her own or needed assistance. She asked if any other, less challenging options existed, thinking that her joke might be too subtle for someone so straightforward. Jung Shu Yi suggested that he carry her like a princess, but Xiyan ignored her remark, walking past. She pouted but resolved to climb onto the horse by herself. As she struggled, Xiyan offered his help, guiding her to step up. He advised her that next time, she should come to him if she wanted to learn how to ride properly. Jung Shu Yi wondered whether she had imagined his suggestion, as he also warned her not to make casual comments like that in the future. She glanced at him and noticed a subtle smile, though he immediately claimed he was not smiling. While she considered that he might have smiled, Jung Shu Yi spoke up, stating that she only wanted him to teach her how to ride but requested that he be a little gentler this time, unlike their previous attempt. As they progressed, Jung Shu Yi continued to babble toward him, voicing small concerns and observations as they moved through the stable area. Back at the office, Jung Shu Yi remarked that the holiday season had ended and that Chinese New Year was approaching soon. Her colleague agreed, commenting on how quickly time passed. The conversation shifted naturally to family, and her colleague asked whether Jung Shu Yi's parents were also pressuring her to get married. Jung Shu Yi laughed softly, noting how coincidental it was that they both suffered under similar parental expectations. Suddenly, Jung Shu Yi's mother called for Jung Shu Yi. She groaned inwardly, realizing it was exactly the type of call she had been dreading. On the line was her mother, asking when she planned to return home for the holidays. Jung Shu Yi tried to explain that she was busy this year and would likely come back a little later. Her mother responded cheerfully that this worked perfectly, revealing that there was someone she thought Jung Shu Yi might want to meet. Jung Shu Yi listened as her mother described a young man, the principal's son, whom she remembered from childhood. He had just returned from studying overseas and was now working in the city. Since both were away from home and probably lonely, her mother suggested they meet and talk, hoping they might become good friends. Jung Shu Yi immediately refuted the notion, explaining that she was not lonely, she was very busy, and importantly, she already had a boyfriend. She stressed that if she were to meet another man, her boyfriend would surely be upset. Her mother scoffed at her protest, claiming that Jung Shu Yi always mentioned having a boyfriend but had never brought one home. Jung Shu Yi insisted that it was not true and that she genuinely had a boyfriend. Her mother pressed, requesting that she bring him home for Chinese New Year, which Jung Shu Yi denied, claiming he was busy. Questions about his age followed, to which Jung Shu Yi replied he was 27. When asked about his profession, she stated that he owned a bank, inwardly noting how her description seemed almost like it could apply to Xiyan. Her mother requested photos so she could see him. Jung Shu Yi considered that she had already explained enough and wondered what else she could do. Realizing that resistance was futile, she decided to send some photos, selecting a few from the press conference she had attended recently. As she studied the images, she found herself smiling, thinking that based solely on appearance, he was quite impressive, and being an auntie to him might not be a bad arrangement. Playfully, she teased her mother, declaring that that's her son-in-law, hoping to put an end to the constant questioning. Her mother, however, sent a photo of someone else, asking if Jung Shu Yi recognized him. Confused, Jung Shu Yi realized it was a familiar face but not the right person. Her mother revealed that it was her stepfather, which annoyed Jung Shu Yi, making her conclude that she could never outsmart her mother. Later, Jung Shu Yi prepared for a blind date arranged by her mother. Her mother had described the man as coming from a family of scholars and scolded Jung Shu Yi to stop acting as though she had been wronged. She insisted Jung Shu Yi hurry up and go. Jung Shu Yi decided to comply, treating the blind date as a side quest for the sake of family harmony. At the restaurant, Jung Shu Yi arrived and apologized to Mr. Yu for being late, explaining she had been stuck in traffic. Yu reassured her that it was no problem, noting that he had only just arrived himself. He ordered first, leaving Jung Shu Yi uncertain about what to say. She decided to tactfully focus on her phone while remembering the photo of Xiyan she had saved the day before. Matching the image with Yu, she groaned internally. Both wore glasses, but their appearances could not have been more different. Yu asked if there was anything she did not want to eat. Jung Shu Yi replied that she had no preference and asked him to order freely. They settled on some dishes for the time being, expressing mutual thanks. Yu guessed, correctly, that she had been pressured into attending by her family. Jung Shu Yi affirmed this, and Yu noted that his situation was similar. Jung Shu Yi considered that, being only 25, it was not yet the right time for her to settle down. Yu acknowledged that she was still young and explained that he, at 30, was also not ready to start a family. He mentioned that his family was anxious but that he had no intention of pursuing a serious relationship or marriage at the moment. Jung Shu Yi proposed a solution, connection. Since both families were pressuring them, they could tell them they were acquainted and getting to know each other. This way, neither would be set up on another blind date. Yu agreed and suggested that since he would be going to study in America after Chinese New Year, they could remain friends for the time being. Jung Shu Yi confirmed that it sounded reasonable. Later, after dropping Jung Shu Yi back, Yu asked if she had been single for a while. Jung Shu Yi hesitated before replying. He noted that she did not seem to lack admirers and wondered whether she had someone she liked but could not be with. He apologized if the question was too forward. Jung Shu Yi admitted quietly that it was partly true, thinking immediately of Shi Yan. She felt the chill in the evening air and reminded herself she needed to hurry. Convinced that a future with him was impossible, her gaze fell on the roadside, and to her surprise, she saw Shi Yan staring at her. Panic flickered through her as she considered whether she should make a run for it, worrying that any sudden movement might make her appear guilty. Her phone buzzed, displaying a message from Shi Yan instructing her not to move. The traffic light turned green, and Shi Yan stepped forward. Jung Shu Yi reasoned that she had done nothing wrong and that she need not flee. It was merely a show for appearances. Shi Yan approached her deliberately. Jung Shu Yi felt no guilt, reminding herself that their relationship had not reached that stage. Without speaking, Shi Yan wrapped a scarf around her neck, asking her to stay. Jung Shu Yi accepted, feeling the warmth of the gesture and the quiet protection in his presence. Earlier, at the old Shi family residence, Shi Yan was reading an article of Jung Shu Yi, smiling faintly at her words. The quiet was interrupted by his father calling him, asking if he was paying attention. Shi Yan replied that he was reading the interview in which Uncle had been featured and asked what the matter was. His father, Shi Wenguang, with a serious tone, mentioned hearing that Shi Yan had been dating an actress recently. Shi Yan frowned, questioning who had told him that. Shi Wenguang pressed, urging him to be honest. Shi Yan denied it firmly, explaining that Jung Shu Yi simply loved acting and that nothing more was involved. Shi Wenguang nodded approvingly, stating that he knew his son was sensible enough not to date an actress under any circumstances. At that moment, Qin Shiyo entered, praising Shi Wenguang's appearance. Shi Wenguang called out, surprised, asking if she was there, since she had said she was going to the library with her supervisor. Qin Shi responded that Jung Shu Yi had gone on a blind date, which caused Shi Yan to flinch slightly. Shi Wenguang commented that she was only a couple of years older and already at that stage, yet she still struggled to graduate. Qin Shi Yue added that in a family like theirs, marriage had to be approached seriously. One could not simply go on a blind date and consider it done. Even if Jung Shu Yi claimed she wanted to marry immediately, Qin Shi Yue doubted she would truly agree to it. She reminded him of their sister Towning, who had married impulsively after falling for someone with a questionable background. Towning had been almost hypnotized by the man's appearance and charm. Qin Shi Yue noted that Towning had been entangled in divorce proceedings for nearly a year and was still being manipulated financially. She emphasized that she did not want Jung Shu Yi to end up in a similar situation. Shi Yan snapped at her, instructing her to stay out of other people's business. Qin Shi Yue protested, insisting she was only using an example, and asked why he was getting upset. 2 hours later, in the present, Jung Shu Yi asked Shi Yan what he had meant by his earlier comments, emphasizing that she was a busy person. Shi Yan's voice was teasing as he asked whether her busyness included going on blind dates, causing Jung Shu Yi to flinch. She quickly explained that the man she had met was the son of her mother's boss. They had known each other since childhood, playing and practicing calligraphy together, and she had not wanted to make the situation seem like a typical blind date. She was careful not to disclose too much, reasoning that saying more could create unnecessary discomfort. Jung Shu Yi then tried to gauge Shi Yan's reaction, asking if he did not trust her or if he was upset. Shi Yan turned his face away, lost in thought. He considered that he might be a lost cause. She only had to look up at him, and he would be willing to give everything without question. Even if she had a hidden agenda, he thought, the worst that could happen was a financial loss, which he could recover. The uncertainty of who was really taking advantage of whom remained, but that did not diminish his attention to her. Shi Yan chuckled softly, and Jung Shu Yi noticed that his smile carried an almost unsettling quality. He reassured her that the meeting had been intended as a reunion between old friends. He had initially thought it was a blind date. Since she was free, he asked why she did not spend some time with him. Jung Shu Yi hesitated, stating that they were on the road and that it would not be appropriate. Shi Yan flicked a stray leaf from her head, while Jung Shu Yi silently wondered if the matter was over and noted that she had made another small mistake. He then inquired whether she had completed her research on Mingyu Holdings' IPO. Jung Shu Yi was confused, realizing that he had come all the way there only to assign her more work. Shi Yan Shu Yi was confused, realizing that he had come all the way there only to assign her more work. Shi Yan instructed her to head to the office the next day to put in overtime, leaving Jung Shu Yi silently questioning his priorities and intentions. The next day, at the Mingyu Holdings office, Shi Yan stood waiting when a knock occurred. He quickly grabbed his phone and struck a pose as he called the person to come in. Jung Shu Yi peeked in, calling for him, and greeted him with a smile, saying she was there to put in some overtime with him. Her expression made Shi Yan's heart flutter. He recalled overhearing someone at a party joke that doing business was like a casino. It was only worth placing a bet when one knew they had a winning hand. He considered himself a gambler who refused to accept failure. Even though she clearly had her own intentions, he couldn't figure her out. She was like an Oscar-winning actress who loved to perform. While Jung Shu Yi asked if he didn't have his own secretary, Shi Yan realized he had gone all in, betting everything he had, including himself, as he called for Jung Shu Yi to come with him.